I'll call meeting to order. I'm missing, we have some people that are going to be coming shortly. The summer days are tough for meeting. You see, everybody has a schedule, and I'm trying to get the best out of the summer, and I get it. I'm going to start off by doing, you've done your sign-ins, please. You've done that already. I'm going to start by talking about a grant that I received. In the master plan, we have a number of action items that are in the plan, and one of the things that we talked about was moving some of the plans along. The town in 1992 passed a plan called the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Master Plan. And in doing so, we end up getting Veterans Park out of it, because that started the conversation and it became justification for us to start developing that park. And of course, then we got a road in there, and we got the road in there, we got the soccer fields and the football fields and so on. So that plan was very beneficial to our community, but it was done in 92, 30 years have gone by. And so it's time for us to look at that again. So I requested have an application put into the county for funding. And one of the things I was asking for from the county was money to actually update that document. I asked them, saying by the fact that Erie County is pouring money into parks, Erie County parks all over Erie County. And the question is, why aren't they pouring any money into the parks on Grand Island? And their answer to that was, well, there's no county parks on Grand Island. So I asked, well, then the least we can do is maybe fund a study so we can further develop our parks and our open space of Grand Island. And the answer was, put your application in. So we did put an application in. Clark Patterson Lee assisted us in doing so, along with Bernie Vitella, who's the grant writer. And we end up with a project that would cost roughly $60,000 from our perspective, throwing everything we get into it. The county is funding $30,000, and there's no matching funds on this. So we have $30,000 to spend on actually updating the Park Recreation Open Space Master Plan. So tonight, what I'm going to introduce is the fact that I'm going to put together a subcommittee of this committee, which is part of our charter. And that would be made up of 3 boards. The Recreation Advisory Board, of course, Conservation Board, and Economic Development. Economic Development has already done their study, and they're focusing on ecotourism, which roughly is also the same thing that Recreation and Conservation are focusing on, is ecotourism of Grand Island. So by putting the 3 together, I think that would be a board that would be well suited to actually update that document. I'm going to ask the 3 chairmen of each of the boards to select their 2 members they would like to have appointed to that board. I was going to talk about members from this board doing it, but I think it's more appropriate that the chairmen of the 3 advisory boards actually put forward the 2 names from each one. And then we'll then decide how we're going to handle the 7th person, who most likely be the facilitator of the project. I want to introduce that tonight to you and say thank you to the county for introducing, giving us $30,000. I would like to get that out to the boards as soon as possible. The other issue is that we haven't formally signed the contract with Erie County yet, and the county right now is formulating that contract. Okay. Mm-hmm. So until that really happens, we don't have, I'm not going to do any official resolutions on it until that contract's in front of us, and then I'll officially make that a motion. Okay, but I wanted to give heads up on where that was going, because there's a lot of conversations going on around right about that. Yep. Now.
Jim?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
What about we're going to hire a consultant?
Yes.
A planner to help us with that? So are we going to put in an RFP or RQ out for that? Or what are we going to do? It's $30,000. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, so the intention would be is that we establish the board itself, and then the board convene to talk about the scope of work. And then the scope of work would develop, the criteria for the planner.
Okay,
So we're putting, so the three boards will talk about what they would like to accomplish, in that effort. And then evaluate what the plan, that actually 1992 plan, what it said and what should be enhanced possibly. But I'm looking for, us to look at the 92 plan and seeing how we can capitalize on it, and talk about where we want to go from here. The other thing that I wanted to look at on that was the, I like to see it to create three components to the plan itself, which is a little different than the 92 plan. And there, if you be somewhat of a chapter for recreation, a chapter for conservation, and a chapter for economic development. And what action items need to be done, through the plan that can go further down to actually get more grants to do more work, like an open space plan, for the conservation board, and a bigger project for the recreation advisory board. I know there's a master plan committee for recreation. So, I mean, I'd like to see what they've done thus far and incorporate anything that they were thinking about when they were looking. As well as looking at the subcommittee of the conservation board, that's looking at open space.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The other one is, moving on to the LWRP. I hope you've gotten a link indicating that the LWRP 60-day review has begun. Each of you should have gotten a letter or an email from Rhonda indicating, this is the link that you need to go to. The document is online through the State Department. And if you have any comments you'd like to make to the document, you need to refer to the link that's there, and identify the page number that is identifying to the piece you want to be modified. So if there's anything there that you think should be corrected or whatever, you're going to send it directly to the State Department, and then reference the page number that you want to have changed. And therefore your comments. The 60-day review is primarily lead agencies, meaning the State Department is looking at it under its review, and also looking at the Corps and DEC and the county and all the public officials, that are involved with planning throughout the state of New York. But as a member of this board, you get the shot at making some of it. So we've already identified, some 30 pages of items that we want to see changed in the document. I did see that they did put in the acknowledgement page of all the people that have been participating in the development of the LWRP, which was not in the last document, which I think is showing the depth of involvement by people on this document. Any questions on that?
So this is any individual that wants to look at it, can look at it and
Yeah.
identify and suggest changes.
Yeah. And then once we do that, the state will look at it and say, yeah, we fit, it doesn't fit. If they feel that it's going to be, if they feel that it's appropriate for the document, then they're going to figure out how to incorporate it. If they feel it isn't, then they're going to indicate why.
So if someone on my board suggests that's change, will that communication be from the state back to them about the change, or how will that?
It'll be back,
how will that be
it'll come back to the
communicated?
board.
Come back here
Yeah, it's going to be a summary of questions and stuff.
from anybody from the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
So all the changes from previous drafts that we talked about today and other days, they'll be, they're already there.
they're heading, yeah,
They're heading there.
Yeah.
I'm comparing that new link to make sure those page numbers are the same page numbers.
That was the problem, the page numbers changed, so then we had even more
I just
confusion.
wanted
Right.
to confirm that before it goes out.
Right.
I have a question real quick. That link is only internal with advisory boards and department heads at this
Correct.
point, right?
correct. Yep. Because once we make our rough run through it, then it goes to the town board. Town there puts it out as a public hearing, the public hearing process. That's when they then make the comment from the document itself. We'd like to get the document as complete as possible from our perspective. And then give them the final document so that they look at it and say, well, okay, we feel a lot to handle. If they feel there's something missing, then we'll turn around and do that. While we're on the subject of the review, I would like to turn around and talk about two items that we want to talk about within the document. One that we put in the document, and that is the porta potties. I think it was intended that the porta potties be a action item and then not necessarily be part of the document. So I'd like to see that extracted from the LWRP and then moved to the town board for them to examine the issuing of permits, or special use permits for the porta potties. Therefore, dealing with where they're located and how they're managed.
But why is it?
Hmm?
Why is that?
Why is it in the document or why we
Well,
do that?
it's in the document, which I assume is saying we like it. No.
No,
No,
That we didn't like. We
Right.
didn't like.
no, and they're showing up more and more.
Yeah.
And
And
they're-
we
and they're
don't
right-
like it being the people who use the trails and use the porta potties.
and not that.
No,
No, we're talking about them on the dock.
We're talking about on personal property.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the ones on West River Trail.
No.
Those are
No,
not public land.
no,
This
no,
is
no,
private.
no.
Ah.
We have porta potties that are put on docks that shouldn't be put on docks, and
Yeah.
it's just some bad neighbor.
Actually, okay.
And most people take good care of where they put them, but there's a few apples that basically,
It's like anything, there's bad actors.
Yeah, of
So
course.
you gotta-
And it ruins them for a lot of other people.
And well, we're
I
gonna.
was just told we weren't gonna take the ones that are.
No,
no, we're not trying to take them away.
If you look at the
We're
draft,
checking, we went
there's
to
a
the
picture in the
middle.
back there that shows a porta potty that was washed off the dock into the river. And it's laying right on the shoreline.
yeah,
So,
That's like one example of that.
so I think it's inappropriate to be in the document as an issue, because it isn't like an island-wide thing. It is something about management, but it shouldn't be like, what do we do with the shoreline? What do we do with docking? What do we do? I mean, all that kind of stuff, it makes sense,
Yeah, I
but
think it evolved out of the process, Jim. I think where it
Yeah.
belongs now is in the hands of the town government to, probably establish a special use permit program for that thing.
yeah,
So that they know where they are, how they are managed and what's going on with them.
Right.
yeah,
And that's where the authority should be.
yep,
Not that the LWRP isn't really a policing authority on its own.
exactly. And the second one is that was raised was the, well, that's not in it. The storage facility, the,
On the edge of it, but we're starting to see new things going in now. Give the public an opportunity to be innovative, and they will be innovative. Shipping containers are starting to show up in yards. I've got one right on the East River, not far from my house, right next to the guy's garage, right at the edge of the LWRP. And so, do we have a special use permit program for shipping containers? No, I don't think so, right?
Shipping containers aren't allowed, period.
Well, then,
For
why,
building.
how is this individual allowed to have a shipping container?
Well, people put them, it's up to the code enforcement to go after that. I've seen a bunch of them pop up lately too, but
But Dave,
that's,
are they
that's
actually
code
prohibited-
enforcement.
Are they actually prohibited by ordinance or?
Yes, to my knowledge, yes.
They're using them as shed.
Storage.
so that was the
Well,
only,
and they also may be moving or doing something.
The
but I
pod,
mean,
the whole pod system.
The whole
well,
thing.
the pod is one thing, but
But there's the
this is shipping.
matchbox, now there's a matchbox.
This is
thing, and-
this person runs a business on the island,
Yeah,
and so this is overflow storage for
Yeah.
that business, and that's like, I don't know if you remember Doucette from years ago. He
Mhm.
had
You're only allowed,
two doors down from him, and they were doing the same thing, he
you're
was-
only allowed one accessory structure on your property. I believe it's two. But they have to be like a shed, and you have to get a permit and a location permit if you're only 10 by 14. If you're over 10 by 14, you actually need a building permit.
This thing is way over 10 by 14. It's a
Right, so it'd be code enforcement. He's over the limit.
So do we don't need
And to my knowledge, the metal shipping containers aren't you're not able to use that as a shed, like a 10 by 14 shed.
Well, let's see, I've got one neighbor that's using an old truck body for a shed in the backyard.
That's, and if he has a plate on the truck, he's
No.
okay. But if it's just off the truck, no, that's not allowed either.
Okay,
What if it's a farm stand?
Well, the farm stand's covered under that new law that came out about the, about their buildings for selling their product. There was the law that came out about the farm stands and it went through the planning board not long ago.
Yeah.
How it all shook out in the end, but
It never got adopted.
yeah, I thought that was like I don't know, 10 by 10. I thought it was, I'm not 100% correct, but there was a limit if you have a farm stand where it can be and the size of it.
I would recommend that when we get into residential design standards, that we talk about that.
That'd be great. That's where it belongs.
so, but in the meantime, you, code enforcement should be advised of these things.
Yes.
So that would not go on
No,
this document.
no. Okay. Anybody else got comments about the outdoor review that jumped out at you when you reviewed it? If you did. Not, we discussed it at the last meeting and I think we put together a great deal of comments.
Well, it's all percolating now.
Yeah, exactly.
We have had some town employees do go through the whole thing.
We're only talking 400 pages.
Yeah. And they
Yeah,
track
I've
their.
done that like 6 times.
Yeah, no, you're.
Yeah, we should do it anymore until we get to some kind of milestone here.
Right.
Thank God it's been 5 years and in 5 years and you're going through it over and over and over again. Sometimes they say, it's there. No, it's not there. It's there. So when the pork fire showed up, I'm going, how did they get in there? But
Well,
because we were talking about it.
We talked about it, the issue got raised up. And I
Yeah.
think at the time we talked about it is when the storm washed the thing into the river. And
Okay, so the other thing is number 4. This is the updated mixed use in incentive zoning and PDD. We started off with talking about PDDs, and this has morphed into a couple other items. PDDs, we had a meeting with Rhonda and Pete, myself, the attorney, and talked about where we stand on this PDD, especially it being a overlay versus PDD, and overlay possibly being something that could expire, and that's why we're looking at the overlay. But as it turned out from the legal aspect, a PDD is a PDD, and no matter if you call it an overlay or you call it a PDD, it's still a PDD. So therefore, yep, walk like a duck, quack like a duck, it's a duck. And
On the chicken.
so the bottom line is, we discussed other ways of actually accomplishing our objective. One, in the comp plan, especially looking at East River and Whitehaven, we talked about heavy mixed use, and it's been raised many times over the different areas, especially the hamlet areas, meaning Ferry Village, Town Center, Ransom Road, Long Road, Love Road, White in River Oaks. And so the issue came back is that we're going to be, and you all know we've been working on drafting the mixed use. I think we pretty much beat one up and have one that we ready to move to the town board. We also were in discussion on the PDD is that this is new, is that we would turn around and delete PDDs from our code. And therefore only use incentive zoning. And with incentive zoning, on top of the existing zoning, would be the benefits. In other words, if I'm R2A and I want to put in mixed use to it, or if I want to put a modification to the R2, the incentive zoning would be applied. The purpose for that would be is the incentive zoning expires. So if you don't do the incentive, then you lose the incentive.
Right.
Okay, so it can have a timeline, and therefore it probably be more instrumental on accomplishing the objective of planning from our perspective than having PDDs.
So it'd be no longer a PDD option.
Correct. You'll be taken out of the code book. Therefore, if you got a mix, if you have a zoning and you want to do mixed use, then you're gonna apply for a rezoning for mixed use. Or if you have a piece you would like to change within your zoning, which would be R1A or whatever it may be, then you would ask for that to be done through an incentive zoning. And therefore show an incentive. The incentive, then, the only change we want to see that we suggested to them on the incentive zoning is there needs to be a public benefit to it. In other words, if you're going to accept money, I'm going to give you money for my incentive, then the money needs to be indicated to what in public improvement or public benefit is going to be done with the money. Therefore, it won't be seen as just taking money for the sake of taking money to do a project.
The conversation is basically, you shouldn't really be doing zoning changes unless it benefits the town. Okay, it's not for the developer's benefit, it's for the town's benefit.
Right.
That being said, if you're into an incentive zoning, as Jim said, there's money and you can put it aside, but maybe that's not it. Maybe the developer is building something a little bit outside of the current zoning, but he's willing to put some public trails in. Maybe he's putting a dog park in. And he says, you know what? I want to take the sidewalk past my project and go down the road 1,000 feet, and I want to add that to the town. And that will be my incentive from me to you to allow me to vary from the prescriptive zoning.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be money. It could be, I'm going to take on the sewer project for you and I'm going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's, so, but it all boils down to, no matter how you look at it or what it looks like, it's to benefit the town.
Correct.
And not the development.
Yeah.
So that's really the goal we've been trying to get to with PDDs is we want the town to benefit. We want people to say, why are we doing that to help the developer? No, sir, man, we want to help the town. So that's what we're trying to get to. And we're trying to create the funnel to make that happen. I think we're really starting to get there.
So the existing PDDs would be grandfathered.
Well, we're looking at that from the standpoint that PDDs be taken away, that if they haven't done them in the 2 years or 3 years they've been there, then we're going to ask that they grandfather out and go and then reapply for incentive zoning. Therefore, take the PDDs off.
Now, are we gonna go through a definition of
Yes.
incentive zoning?
Yes.
Go through that?
Yes. Yeah.
Create a document?
Yes. And then,
Understand, we're not trying to break the developers.
No.
No, we're just trying to.
Yeah, well, I think that you define it, and that's
Correct.
helpful to everybody.
Correct.
right, well, the biggest problem for me is that when we're sitting around the table doing a master plan and we're developing a zoning map, we don't ever put a PDD on the zone map. We put R1A, we put B1, R2A, but we don't ever go, oh, that's a PDD. Because PDD trumps all zoning,
Right,
right?
right.
So from my perspective, you should use the ZBA if you want to do a modification to your land. You're saying, well, I want to do that, but I can go to ZBA and actually get it done, or I can change my zoning to get it done. Those are avenues that basically go through a public review. To me, I think PDDs are a sidestep from what we're trying to do as planners for our community in benefiting.
I think that the initial thought of the PDD is to benefit the community. That's strictly.
Yeah.
We just want to put it right back where it belongs.
I mean, PDDs for developers give creativity. We don't want to standard the creativity. We want the creativity there, and then you can use the incentive to be able to do your creative. South Point, the people look at that one and groan, but there's one huge public benefit that South Point is doing for the community, and that is we bottleneck the whole southern part of Grand Island for sewer water and sewer from getting to the plant. And what they're doing is putting in a lift, which will take more of the load from below it and moving it more to their package plant. So their public benefit is big.
It's pretty huge. Yeah.
It's big.
So that would cut out the violations like you have down there.
Well, it would certainly help.
Yeah.
It would help.
Fisherman's Landing.
It would remove some substantial impediment in the flows.
Yeah.
It would work the way it was supposed to work. And the other thing, like Jim and I have spitballed about South Point out there, is we got a ton of green space out of that.
We did.
You know, if we,
That's the other
if
thing.
that would have been segregated off into, and everybody said, why don't you just give them this zoning and this zoning and this zoning? But then every one of those developers comes in with as of right use, how much can I put in that zoning? Where we played it all off itself. I mean, we literally got, it's 39% development. That's pretty awesome. You know, that means there's 61% of green space, you know, and that's, you don't get that.
We got almost all of it.
You don't get that, unless you, if you did that, all those projects individually, we wouldn't have solved it. But the fact that all played off each other, we got, you know, collectively a really nice operation for it. Yeah, could we have done it a different way? Yeah, but I think we won on this way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a work in progress, you know,
Well,
long progress.
yeah,
Long, strange trail.
and the end, the things that are frustrating with me with PDDs is that a person walks in, they lay out their project, and they say that's the PDD, and the planning board, town boards, and we knock it all to into nowhere, trying to get it done, and then we're settled. Then the developer sits on it for 2 or 3 years, and then sells to another guy. And then that guy comes in and says, I can't build that. And so now the PDD is there, and now he then comes in with his ideas, but he doesn't have to have rezoning anymore. He's got a PDD.
He sits back on the file. Right?
Right. So the issue is the whole work to build that PDD in the beginning, it's lost. So what we wanted to get out of the project, and we're no longer getting out of the project. So therefore, PDDs to me are not manageable in the long run. And me being around since the 90s, and that PDD of South Point was in my lap as a councilman in the 90s. And what I see today isn't what we got beat up for 3 years to do. So from my perspective, okay. So you're gonna be seeing, are we ready for the mixed use to be put on the table?
We're waiting for everything to come
Oh,
back
from the lawyer.
from legal.
Yes. All right.
So it's fine tuned and we don't waste time on something that we
Right.
can't do anyway.
So we've got all the ideas from the discussions we had in the past. The incentive zoning is the only piece that you really haven't seen. So the incentive zoning is going to be under table, so you can look at that. And we've asked the attorney to draft the documents.
Well, the incentive zone exists.
Yes.
It's just more of, I guess, how we'd like to see it used.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes sense.
So is there a checks and balances component in that? So it isn't like some developer comes and says, you got this here, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, and that. So let me tear your community apart, you know, because I've seen that, you know.
Well, I think that that's where, when we talked with Malcolm, and then I said, the one piece that we need to put in there is the public benefit piece, that it asking for, approve the public benefit piece. And I think that's the only thing, and he felt he could do that. So
I'm gonna say this as an appropriate way to put it, but the punishment should fit the crime. Okay?
Yeah, I see,
What-
but you know.
One thing I chime in on from the planning board perspective, the PDDs, you know, we ask for this, that, and another thing, and it's always no, we don't want to do that, no. You know, just like the Radisson, they didn't want to do the sidewalks out front that they should have had to do because of the code change. They didn't want to take the path that they were creating they wanted the town to take care of the path and maintain the path. I didn't see the benefits that we were getting by giving them the PDD through the planning board. The more we ask, they just balk. No, we don't want to do that. Well, you know, what about the rec fees? No, we don't want to pay them. You know, we're getting a lot of that through the planning board. And I think the last few years that we've seen the projects come through, I think the PDD thing is not much more for the town. I think it's heavier for the developer. Not that I'm against developer, I'm a contractor myself, but I think if we go to incentive zoning, there's got to be more of a rule book, not just pay to play.
Well, that's what we're just trying to say. It's not really pay to play in, and Radisson did come through with the Riverwalk and the sidewalks and everything else, and they're gonna take care of it, and they have a public dock. So they and they're gonna put a kayak launch in, so all that's in their incentive zoning, and that was their offering to the town, which I think is pretty substantial. You know, not every property has waterfront to offer. Some people can offer trail work, some people may say, you know what, I'd like to help with the sewer project. You know, there's many, and you can't really put a cookbook out there, Dave, and say you're gonna give this much. You know, it's all gonna be what I said earlier, you know,
I'm just saying, Pete, when they did come to the planning board, they wanted to give us nothing.
no, I know they would.
They didn't want to give us nothing. They balked and balked and balked about, you know, oh, we're gonna do this, and then, oh, now we're not gonna do that anymore.
You
And then
know,
their
Right.
big list of what they were gonna do at the planning board level ended up being the walk and the sidewalks was only because of the code change. Wasn't something that they were willing to do. They actually fought me on the sidewalks when I brought it up.
well, I think,
I'm just saying, I understand it might have shook out in the end better.
right,
At the planning board level, we need something with a little more teeth.
well, I think when it comes to the planning board, Dave, you guys shouldn't be afraid to say, we recommend this change. We also recommend these potential, you know, incentives to the town. And when you approve them for that, you put forth your vision, you know, and then the town
Okay.
board, just like when you say you need an island or you don't need an island on your entrance egress, you know, put your recommendations in your resolution. You know,
Okay.
what's in there. You understand my point, Dave?
Yep, no, I got you.
And that way it's out there, it's public, it's documented. They know that you're asking for it, and they're pretty much would be blind if they didn't think the town board was gonna try and push for what the planning board pushed for. You know,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It's like it's the negotiation.
Right,
And if you have if you're negotiating the items before it gets put into a plan to go to the planning board, that should be sorted out.
well, if the developer is coming to the town board for final approval, and they know that the planning board was looking for X, Y, and Z. The town board's probably gonna listen to the planning board, you know what I mean, and you're gonna have the first crack at the pinata, I'll say, you know, to see what falls out, so.
Okay. All right. Any more comments on mixed use and the three zones we're talking about? Number 5. Design standards. We have now submitted them out to the other advisory boards, and the only 2 have responded to it. Economic development and traffic safety.
Conservation Advisory Board responding quickly.
And Parks and Rec, we talked about it, but, I think Dave Pratt reached out to everybody again and sent a copy of the proposal to all the members. And when we originally looked at it, we were concerned about the fact that we were concerned about the density and the distance between the buildings. I know that was a while ago though, and I see that they've changed it a little bit. But and we also kind of looked at it and thought, this isn't a very walkable community. I mean, it may be where and I know that according to code, you don't need sidewalks in townhome places. But my God, when you got 54 townhomes and you got to walk in the street to get anywhere, it just seemed to me like it would be nice if there were sidewalks there. But I realize that with the length of the driveways, it's probably not possible. But I mean, they have them at the homes and along Whitehaven Road. I just would have liked to have seen it to be a more walkable community in that respect. And we did appreciate the fact that they put in some walking paths and some other, green space in there. But I'll see what the rest of them come up with when they'll get back to you, and Dave will, combine everybody's and put stuff together and get it back to you shortly, I hope.
Okay, just remember that the design standards used to be only the town center. Design standards now are for all business districts.
Yeah. including hamlets.
anything in the hamlet. So that means Love Road, Ferry Village, the whole 9 yards. So we're not confining ourselves any longer to just the town center. It's for all business districts on Grand Island.
Including the industrial parks. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about that East River Road thing. So maybe that's later on down the no, but isn't. But
This is the.
But that was one of the things we were looking at in design standards. If you're gonna put a lot of townhouses together, it sure would be nice to be able to walk on the
That was
street.
coming, and I would totally agree with that. That's gonna come from what Pete mentioned earlier, that we start to develop, performance standards for residential development.
Right, okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I got ahead of myself there.
we gotta get a couple things across the goal lines before we started any more things going here.
Yeah, I know.
Both, you know,
Judy, currently townhomes are generally private roads. That's why they get to use the road as the walkway.
Right, yeah,
Where like you're saying East River and Whitehaven, there was a section that he's putting homes on that would
Uh-huh.
have to have sidewalks.
right. I saw that. It's just that there were 54 homes in there and I'm just,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Heron Point. I don't know if there's sidewalks there either, so it just, I
I
don't know,
think
just
sidewalk-
like
I think
safety issue.
sidewalks are something that should be done too. I agree with you.
We'll
And
do it
that's in the, and town, and Heron Point's in the town center, so
if you
people are gonna put more big
part of the-
apartment stuff like there, we should look at that too.
So, what I would like to do, so we got 3. We got one from the economic development, one from the, traffic safety, and we also got one from the planning board.
we didn't, we were formally asked to give one from the Chamber of Commerce, as we're not a hard border committee, but I think, I have brought this discussion back for a board. I think this is directly in the line of the bailiwick of the people who are on the board of directors and the people who reside in the business district. So I would like to put together, if that's okay, on letterhead is the chamber, we'll call it notes of, I brought it up for 10 seconds, figuring we talk about it, and then it was 2 hours later, I'm like, okay, we gotta have a meeting.
Right.
So there was a lot to say,
Good.
but, if you want, I'll put that in,
No, I think it could be benefit because
I'll turn it in, right?
I mean, right now we have standards, but the issue is, the code doesn't always turn around and demand the things that need to be done. When developers come in, and they're gonna do an outbuilding, if you will, in front of tops, they decide they're just gonna dress out 2 sides of it. And we're looking at it and said, no, 3 sides, 4 sides, please, because you've got somebody behind you. And so I think I'd like to hear what the businesses have to say about the standards and our effort to turn around, bring up the caliber of just development in our centers.
There's nothing else, at least hold our calendar.
Yeah, at least hold it.
Yeah, we had a lot of, we had a half an hour breakout, which got interest unintentionally. The conversation took us to getting back to property improvement awards and
Yes.
incentive, like, there was a lot of, a lot of the big developers, but some of these folks who own the small buildings haven't done a whole lot of with theirs, and the woe is me, it's hard to run a business, stuff doesn't go very, it's your responsibility to be a good neighbor.
Right.
And to have and upkeep the environment and the look and feel and the property values of your neighbors are all your responsibility. The minute it's not, it starts to look like the land of misfit toys that Grand Island Boulevard is.
I mean,
Like at the entrance to Grand Island Boulevard now,
Oh,
it looks like the conventional disaster zone. If you're going into some third world southern village that has no zoning.
Well, my poor wife, for 18 years that we lived here, every time we drive in the car together, has to hear me say, "Welcome to Niagara Falls," because that's what the sign says on the
Yeah.
building that's barely standing
I
up.
mean, that empty tourist trap over there with grass that was this high, now it's finally cut, stolen vehicles parked in the parking lot, I mean, it's just like, and nobody does anything, it just sits there.
so,
Don't forget that the design standards are in the application for the planning board. It's
correct.
right in the application, so those standards help us at the planning board level, try to, get them to, do a nicer building or go the extra mile.
And if you're not gonna ask for it, you're not gonna get it. If your code is not asking for it, they're not gonna do it. I mean, we hear it all the time. How can McDonald's look like this one on Grand Island, but you go to another town and they're much different, much more dressed up? And that's because their standards are higher than our standards. So if we don't ask for it, we can't get it.
Because somebody made them, that's the simple answer. Nobody spent money, extra money because they don't need, they wanted to.
Exactly.
Well, look at the new,
The our store.
that's going on Love Road, and look, the one they put up in Newton.
And look at the
One
one
looks
they
like
put
a
on Main,
bunker and the other one looks like a real store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you look at the one that they just put up on Main Street in Williamsville. I mean, it's such nice, yeah, it's across from the, it's actually it's not that, it's in, Cheektowaga. No, Clarence. It's across from Clarence High School. It's right down the street from Clarence High School.
So I've been there 3 times.
Something else too is that don't forget with the current design standards that we have, we went from 2 to 8 with the tops out building. So if we have a stronger design standards and more stuff in there, we could maybe get the 10 instead of the 8. I mean, Benderson came way up. When he first came in, it was just a bare bones concrete building. And now it's, it's a pretty nice building. I would have liked to seen something even better, but we didn't have the teeth to go that route. The design standards would help the planning board immensely.
Before I forget, which usually comes in my mind now, Brian, so I'm not gonna let it get away. I had a meeting with, Tim Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, who was instrumental in getting the overpass done. And I asked him if it would be possible to put welcome to the town of Grand Island on the bridge. And the answer was, I love the idea and put yourself forward. So I did do a drawing and I sent it to his aides and they're actually trying to get it done. So it would be right on the span of the bridge saying, welcome to town of Grand Island. So that, let's see where that goes. I know putting any signs up saying welcome to Grand Island has been taboo.
Yeah.
Because they see that as a distraction. But I did illustrate to him that I come from North Carolina through Georgia, coming from Hilton Head, and I see it throughout all the communities as I'm taking the throughways to Grand Island. They're right on the bridges, and sometimes on the screen that's over there for the snow stuff, it's right on the screen itself, saying welcome to the community that I'm passing through. And I'm saying, if they can do it, why can't we? He liked that idea a lot, so.
Very tricky on a throughway. You go 65 miles an hour, you can really not know. Oh, you went over 2 bridges. I could tell you, a guy who drives a lot. I get on the phone, I don't even know where I'm at sometimes.
Right.
If you don't have a sense of place or where you're at, it's defined by signage.
Right, so he liked the idea a lot, so let's see where it goes.
I
I
agree.
think, and just why you raised that, I would never brought that back on my brain if you hadn't.
Yeah, I'd love to see that, especially with the loss of the sign that we had. That was beautiful.
Yes. Of course, that was at Staley Road, so you're already past
You're already
Grand
past.
Island Boulevard.
Like, whoa, next exit, right here.
That's why, no, you're not past it, because when you come over the bridge, you're gonna be able to see it right there, and then you can see it.
Big enough.
It'll be big enough to be the whole.
We just gotta get the kids to spray paint on the overpass on the 190, or they do good work. You can see that stuff a mile away.
Yeah, my God, do you see how that's blossoming?
Yeah.
It's all through Tonawanda now too. It's
And,
starting-
and really, I mean, people do not drive fast over that bridge. I
Oh, I
literally,
wish they would, yeah.
yeah, they're scared, and even when you go.
They don't know
down,
what's on the other side of
They
it,
don't
so.
know what's on the other side. And then sometimes the troopers are sitting there, so, I mean, you're gonna see that sign.
Yeah, you're gonna see it, you come down, you go, there it is.
There
And
it
you go-
is.
And yeah, the issue was big enough that it's big letters, it would take up the entire span of the bridge. You know,
Could be a signature piece for the, like we talked, Nate talked about it a while ago about this, where he wanted to put the sign. It's not a bad idea, something signature. We don't have a welcome to Las Vegas thing, right? But something that when you hit, you go, oh, come on, yeah, there I am, here I come. Something the news would always use in the news roll.
Right.
Instead of just a picture of the bridges, you know?
Yeah,
so I'm gonna make a phone call again tomorrow, find out where it's at, and then,
Well done.
It's well done. Becomes iconic to some extent. It doesn't have to be elaborate to be iconic, just
right,
nice.
identifies.
Identify.
The problem here, we're dealing with both Federal Highway Administration and the Thruway Authority. I mean, they are the most rigid 2 agencies on this planet.
You said administration and authority in the same sense. You have that's all a red tape sentence.
Well, I already told my husband I'm gonna wait a year before I drive over. I'm
Good
gonna
drive.
keep on going the other way than I do. I go through the park, I go the back way.
I actually believe traffic flow is better
I do
with that
too.
bridge not there because of the entrance at the other end when all intersections are hitting at the on-ramp.
Yeah,
Without that happening, there's a little wait over
Well,
at
it might be
Whitehaven.
better there, but it's not so damn good for the neighborhoods that are on the other side there on the detours.
Are they getting cut through?
Oh,
See, I
yeah,
come
they're
from north
they're
south,
cutting
so
through
we're
all
not
of them. It's
south
not
north,
by,
right?
by federal highway law, that, rules, they're supposed to be on Love Road. Only, but they're on all of the local roads.
Oh, the detour point?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, once people know how to cut through.
Well, it's the GPS system.
Magic.
It sends them it, you know?
They have
So-
computers.
but you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. My husband and I have tested it. No matter what you do, and no matter which exit you get off on and where you're going, it takes the same amount of time to get to the same point. No matter which exit you get off.
Shortcut, you know, to the neighbors, I even think, I don't live in that area. but-
Well, it goes down to the church, and that road is just packed.
Yeah.
Or depending on whether you're coming or going.
They're rolling
It's just
through there
packed.
at 60 miles an hour in the 30 zone, you know, because the cops are writing tickets there all the time, you know?
That would have been a nice redesign of that.
And so
I know, I thought they were
I just remembered that the Thruway Authority said we had a, what was the term they used for they had a very, not poignant, it was another word like that.
What?
A robust, discussion with the public.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, in one ear and out the other. That's how the discussion went.
Three Facebook comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we asked for a meeting, and they, yeah, we asked for a meeting,
Yeah.
to clarify. And they turned around and come back, we already had a robust conversation, so therefore we felt there's no need for a meeting.
All right.
Okay,
The only way that I ever got anything out of the Thruway Authority is when I threatened them with clean water act violations. Then they would cooperate. But I'm not there anymore. I can't do that. So.
all right. So we're gonna review the comments and we're still waiting, hopefully, Judy, get the ones in from rec, so we can look at it from the performance standards area, and then, you're saying,
I already sent, we sent it in April.
you sent
I
it,
just resent it, April
Okay.
27th.
I just sent it to everyone.
got it, okay, good. Then we're gonna review those, because we're gonna,
Yeah.
we wanna finalize this at the next meeting. And then, Eric, if you're gonna put out something to the,
Yeah, I'll just put on letterhead. I probably have 2.5 pages of notes in here. I'll just transfer them over to something legible to the rest of
okay,
the public.
that'd be great.
Chicken scratch.
So that brings me to number 6. So,
Wait a minute, I got a question.
go ahead.
You know what? I submitted those design standards back in March to be reviewed at our meeting when we got them, and there's a red line copy. And is there a copy that's not a red line copy? Because that's the last copy I got. And I sent it, and then we didn't meet in March, and then somehow it never made it on the April agenda. So we haven't really looked at it. I sent it out to everybody and asked for their comments, but nobody ever got back to me. So if I get it back on our agenda, or is there a clean copy of it that I haven't seen, that I can send to everybody? I don't have one in my notes right now.
I can resend it to you, Judy. The last one we
Okay,
did have red line because we wanted to show where the changes were made.
Yeah.
And we
is that the
haven't,
one from March?
yes, we haven't taken everyone's
Okay,
feedback
Okay.
and changed this, but I'll resend it.
I have the one from March, if that's the one you're talking about.
One March 21st.
Right, right. Okay, I had sent that out to them. I'll send it out again and make sure that it gets on it gets out to people again to see.
Okay, if there's no
Sorry
comment,
to interrupt.
come back. If there's no comment, just tell them, just send a message back to us, no comment.
But I'm pretty sure, I don't know how much Parks and Recreation is gonna look at that the town business center for Parks and Recreation, except for the town commons.
Right,
So I'm not really sure. you
yeah,
know,
I
what
know,
we could, yeah, okay,
saying if there's no comment, just say no comment.
okay.
All right, so we had, Monday night was an interesting night at town board.
Every,
Board meeting is interesting.
I know, but I had to attend this one because it was so interesting. Long Road project is now front and center. We dealt with Amazon, now we're dealing with, the development of the, parcel on Long Road. And so at the meeting, there was discussion about how do we handle the M1? So to begin it is this, we all have code, but we all see an interpretation of the code. And we kind of assume certain things would be a certain way. I mean, we envision it's M1 and what pops into our minds may be something like an office park or something or campus-like environment. But then all of a sudden, a building that takes up the entire parcel shows up and we're looking at that saying that wasn't even on our radar. And so therefore, we really need to pay attention to the code and how it can be interpreted. So the planning board or the town board dealt with that on Monday and indicated that the M1 code should be examined and further explained as to what we in the community would like that parcel, the M1 uses to be. So what we have before you today is a document that was put together and a suggestion as to how the code should change. So the piece that I'm going to walk you through what I think it is. Huh?
It's the one.
It's that one. Yeah, the next page. The top piece you're looking at is actually the resolution that was made by the town board. The resolution was to establish a moratorium, and then that was quickly turned into, why are we doing a moratorium when we should just quickly go right at it and start to make the suggestions. That's what we do, and start the process for public review, as well as us to start examining this. So what you have in front of you is the beginning of that conversation. And so what you have in front of you is the proposed law that's being suggested. And the reason it's in front of us is because anytime a big project grant occurs, the issue, does it concur with the comp plan? Does it really, is it in thought of what the comp plan or the comp plan committee was envisioning it to become? Okay, so therefore the code is somewhat vague, because it says if you were an M1, you can have a warehouse, you can have a distribution center, you can have these different things, but you never looked at it and says, what are those things? And you elaborate on what is a warehouse or what is a distribution center. So the new law that's being presented basically does talk to that issue and addresses and states what are the different components. And so you're looking at changing of the law, which is in 407-1, the definitions. So the definitions is the distribution facility, the mini storage facility, and warehouse.
Can I just ask you, I read through this a couple times, what is the current language? All this is proposed change language, correct?
Well, it's just more definition.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? So we're trying to establish definitions. So it's not.
He wants to know just what the change is.
Is there a definition now?
Is there a definition of square footage on the current situation?
No. No. It basically says you use 40% of the property.
Yeah.
Okay, the building, be 40% of the property.
Yeah, you have to have 60% open.
Yeah.
Not on the rooftop.
Well, the thing is, there's a couple of things in the M1 that we might want to address. If we're looking at the 40%, the 40% shouldn't just be the building. It should be any impervious surface in the roads should be included in the 40%, where it is not in the code to indicate that. Right now, the code is basically saying in the building 40%, but it should be the hardscape that goes with the building should be determined to be the 40%.
Right,
Right?
yes.
Then the building would be smaller because of the fact now you're taking in what is 40%. Because right now you're saying 40%. Well, then all of a sudden you start to see a big, huge parking lot and more roads and on, which basically makes it a hell of a lot bigger footprint. Okay. So therefore, I think the code, if looking at it under the 40% should be there. So what this document is doing basically giving you a definition of what is being referred to. And Eric, you want, this is the actual code.
The current code?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went trying to look for it, but it was not healthy when you're driving this move. Any litigious reading, I tried to leave at stoplight, but I didn't have the time.
Okay. So, I think it's appropriate to turn around and one of the things that we've been talking about in the master plan is actually looking at moving from the code book we currently have to form-based code, which basically is a lot more communicative of what we're trying to accomplish. Because then we would throw pictures in it, and then you would have a lot more definitions in it. And this document basically is basically starting to build on that. So this is an example of us starting to look at our code and actually how do we want to see it actually applied to our community. So this document is basically taken on the pieces that we really need to look at. The point I wanted to bring to your attention is under each of these or two of these, it basically talks about what is the size of the building.
Right.
So right now, they're giving the a rule, if you will, or a guideline, to not to exceed 300,000 square feet per individual building.
Let me state that that is a very much an arbitrary number
Correct.
assigned to it.
That,
And we are very much looking for this board's input on what that number should be.
right.
What's the arbitrary number exactly? Sorry, we'll make sure it's
The
the.
300,000.
300,000.
feet.
That was one of these. Let's start here.
So my question was, but I was like, yes.
And
That
that's
300,000 has nothing to do on 6,000 acres? A single 6,000 acre lot or 100 acre lot or a 10 acre lot, it's 300,000? That doesn't make any kind of sense. Is there-
Well, but you know what? But Jim, hit the bullet. I mean, look at what we have to deal with when we look at the plaza up the road. All we really see is blacktop in a building that's generally empty. I mean, what we're talking about is you can put in a 300,000 square foot building, but we want some landscaping. We want some determinants of roadways that are kind of covered. We want it to look nice.
Yep.
So before we go down the rabbit hole here, let me just say, because we're gonna go way down, we're gonna go to Allison Wonderland. This is the as of right code. So, basically what we're talking about, you can build anything anywhere if you
Right.
could do it right, and you can prove you can do it. So this doesn't stop anything. This
Correct.
just says, you know what, slow down, maybe you need a variance of this, or maybe you need to do something like that, so it doesn't.
It's the protection of the few against like the few landowners who are upset around it with the rights of the person who pays taxes on that property. And then you're changing the rules after they pay it. It's egregious. Like, not everybody who doesn't live on the West River backed up to it agrees.
Mhm.
There's 22,000 people, and most people now could give a flying crap if it's zoned for it.
Yeah.
When you start making it so everything has to be a variance, you are eliminating development.
I understand your point.
Like I feel passionately about the rights of those who have bought a property and paid tax on it under a certain auspice, and then
Pete, it's not like we're neophytes here. We've been through this before and the taxpayers have paid the cost if it's clay mining that went on.
I understand.
That with the marina down there on East River Road.
And that's why a moratorium was not acceptable to most of us.
No, yeah, moratorium would just fuel that process.
A moratorium was
I have a question.
aggressive.
This new M1 change, is this for someone who's going to apply in the future, or are you trying to apply this new change to the current application on the long road project?
I personally don't agree with changing the law for any project.
Because I mean, this guy's already been in, submitted his SIS, has spent piles of money, and then you're gonna say, well, nope, here's the new law, you can't build 1 million square feet, we only want you to build 300?
The result would be a takings that the town will end up having the penalty, which will be passed on to the taxpayers. It happened before. And I've seen it happen all over the United States when I worked at the Corps.
And let's look at what happened with Amazon. The big complaint that I always heard was traffic, traffic, traffic. And now they went to Niagara County because we didn't play ball with them, and we're going to get all the traffic and no benefit, no $10 million gift, no $1 million a year in property taxes, no 1,800 jobs. So now you want to do the same thing to the Mr. Huntress on his new project? I don't get that. I can
totally-
understand if aren't you grandfathered in once you get started, that you just can't change the law in the middle of the stream?
The sale.
I know, yeah, the court will decide that if you want to push it, that's just a dumb way to go, but I agree with you, like the best projects for the town, but I could tell you as someone who intimately reviewed the site plans and the changes at Amazon, you're not going to get nicer amenities in terms of landscaping,
Right.
retainage the roads in the final,
I mean,
what they were gonna do, whether you like the project or not, that was as good as you're gonna get, the give back, the setback, we didn't want that. And you take landowners and you start pushing them around and then tell them now all of a sudden you're gonna throw new rules in the game.
I mean, in M1, there is no
Well, you're
current
up.
landscaping requirement. And when Amazon did come in, their landscaping plan was 2,500 2.5 caliber trees they were going to plant on that project.
Yeah.
So the landscaping was there. So that's definitely not the issue.
Was kept.
It's just I think the issue is that you have folks out there that you see the signs, no giant warehouse. Well, Huntress has rights, legal rights too, just like all the rest of us. I just don't see.
Do you think, Gloria, sorry, I can't help it. I know.
It's computer.
I can't help myself, you're beautiful.
That's okay, sorry.
But do you think in general, like, let's take that project's not on the table and there's this piece of land there that's been there, nobody has anything proposed. And somebody wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I don't like how we have things set. Would these be the rules we push out? And I tend to read through them first blush, this is my take, I know Jack Squad, you would know better than who's in that room, what you're talking about. But I tend to think someone doesn't wake up, this feels like a reactionary piece to a specific project.
And
And if you're doing that, then it doesn't benefit me as a town taxpayer long term, maybe one project, one betterment. But the idea here is to set the table so that in the future, we set a standard and we hold people to it because it's best for the town and it's fair to the landowner. There's always a compromise and nobody's always, thrilled on both sides, but it can't be, this just feels like really.
Eric, there's a ton of case law that you can't back up zoning to capture some project that you let go through the crack.
I can imagine that. I understand the intent of what people are doing. I'm not even like,
But the important thing to remember is.
Eric, this is something that happened 2004, I believe it was 2004. The Whitehaven Road East River project was zoned R3. The town reduced it to R2. That landowner had a certain amount of time that he could have taken the town to court and said, no, I don't want my zoning changed. That particular landowner never did that. And then 20 years later, he decides he wants to put Lighthouse Point there and says, well, I want my land reverted from R2 back to R3. But that's understandable the way that shook out. But in the middle of this man's application, we're going to change the code and say, well, you can't build what you want to build. And like Jim just commented a little while ago, well, I could have a PDD and come in and say, well, Joe Blow had it, sold it to me. I can't financially do Joe Blow's project. I want to do this project because it's feasible financially. I think you're in the same boat here with the Long Run project. Because you don't like the 1 million square foot building, that I'm sure that was zoned, if I believe right, 8 smaller buildings to be, Jim, am I correct? Over 1.5 million square feet?
Six buildings.
0.6 and 8 buildings. Now he wants to build one building at 1.2 or 1.3 million because that's financially feasible to build that building and not financially feasible to build 8 separate buildings. So now you're telling him you can't do it? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it.
I mean, please, if I'm wrong, I'm all to say I'm wrong. Explain it to me. Because I don't see the explanation.
I don't think, Eric, it's just interesting too, when you read through the previous and what the changes are intended for, it's, I don't know. I think it's a discussion that needs to happen. I'm glad I'm not on the town board and have to deal with it at this particular time in history. But, I guess that's, you guys signed on for that, so,
That's where they make the big bucks.
that's why they pay their big dollar, $18 or whatever.
Niagara County took Amazon on for 3 point something million square feet. Literally gave them a tax deduction. We weren't asking for a deduction here. They were going to give us a $10 million incentive.
Right.
And we turned it away. And then now you got a guy there with the same property that wants to do the 1.3 million square foot
Same landowner.
house, and you want to change the code?
A different development.
And,
Right.
and no incentives,
Nothing.
nothing.
I mean, if you want to ask the guy to, give us a better landscaping plan or something that's reasonable, I think is one thing, but to say, well, we don't want your big building after he's paid taxes for 30 years on the thing.
Am I reading this wrong, or is this all of, I mean, this, when I read this, I read through it a second time to make sure I wasn't reading any what my predisposed thoughts were on it, and I read it a third time, and it all seems pointed to me about the square footage of the building, size of the building, square footage of the building. Even when you start talking about percentage of usage, taking that up, it's like, wait a minute, I bought 100 acres, and all of a sudden now you're telling me I can't put a road through it, that counts against it, like, I didn't buy 100 acres, and then, by the way, there's a giant parcel that's wetland, which I knew about, that wasn't developable. So you really start changing the nature of the value of that property out from under the person who paid an awful lot of money for it. To be in balance with the rights of the neighbors, absolutely, but
Well,
you know what?
I
That's where they
agree,
bought
I
their house.
agree with you. I mean, there's some requirement that the potential landowner has to do some homework about what he can do on the site. We used to run into this problem all the time with the Corps. We try to give them as much pre-application counseling as we could get to. But this isn't the same thing. This is where the guy's already sailed out of the port, and now you're gonna torpedo him. He's got a plan, he's got a project, and you're going to backfill the whole process with regulations to try to control him and keep him out of the area. That's wrong. It is wrong. And the courts will find.
I
it wrong.
agree. I
And the
agree with you.
taxpayers will pay the penalty because when the courts come back and fine you for doing this,
Right,
it gets passed on to all of us.
right.
We all had to pay $500 a year for, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years or whatever it was for that lousy clay mining nonsense that went on, which should have never happened because they've imposed a needless moratorium. So, I mean, where are you going with this thing?
Or not to a moratorium.
Well, I agree.
Right.
For sure on that. I mean, you ought to just let the thing go through the review process and see where it lands.
It's the workflow, right? Like, if you think about all this that's going on with PDDs, overlays, we're all trying to struggle. I believe the players involved in our town, I really believe this, are trying to do the best thing they can with a limited acumen to this. We're not a huge development center. We don't have a lot of history. Our code's not even what we want it to be. And so then you have these things happening, PDD overlays. Then around the corner, we have Stony and Ransom. Well, the guy wants to build something. It's not zoned for it. Well, we own the right to say whether I like that or not. We're not doing it because it's not zoned for it. Now something is zoned for it, and we say, wait, we want to change that because we don't like that either. So there's a point where it's like a free ring circus. Like, you have to have some stability.
Well, the project proposed is not asking for anything out of the existing zoning.
No.
That's right. Basically, well, somebody said it's not answered right, but he's meeting, I think, I believe he's meeting the 40% on the building.
Oh, it's
40, not 60, 40.
Stony and Ransom. Instead of houses, it's gonna be apartments.
Well, that's what he'd like to do, but it's
Yeah.
not zoned for that. So at least I get where that's the argument starts. That's him asking for a section, not us saying, oh, it's zoned for apartments, but we're gonna change that real quick before you build it.
Right.
That's different than I'd like to build something it's not zoned for and somebody going, I don't think so.
What the town should do here is just run the process through to a decision point. And stop being afraid of making a decision.
Yeah, we keep
I
on
mean,
sitting.
so, you can always deny the application for development.
Well, and the thing is that we keep sitting in these meetings talking about creating density. We have enough property here on Grand Island. People just zoom by, we're talking about putting signs on a bridge. We're trying to create density. So we've got to give up somewhere.
Well, I mean,
We're not giving up because it's in his code. It's in the M1 code, what this man wants to do.
I've got to say, I mean, the master plan, the parcels is, right. The plan basically in the M1 has been sitting in the town's plan since 1966. In 1990, we went after the master plan again and adopted it in 95. Again, the M1 stayed in the plan. Now, again, public can participate, has been encouraged to participate. And then in 2018, we went through it. In 2016, we went all through it again. And in 2018, we adopted the current master plan. And again, the M1 parcel that's there is the same parcel that was there in 1966. So the issue with master plan processing, just to give it a little background, is that you're trying to balance your tax load too. The master plans are really about development, about what we can do with our property as far as, in a sewer district, out of a sewer district. But you want to balance your commercial and your industrial to offset the residential costs, because we know that we did the tax study, and the tax study said back then that for a resident that puts in $1, he takes out $1.20. And every time a business puts in $1, it takes out 50 cents in services. So the residential and the commercial side of it is actually funding the residential side of the pie. So if you don't develop your commercial and your industrial, well, then all you're doing is making the tax burden that much stronger.
Which you guys told me was nonsense at that meeting we had, just, that concept, that commercially, that's complete nonsense.
That's not complete nonsense.
Well,
We're not the only town that's done it.
It's, so people, but they don't adopt that thinking because my taxes are high, which I always argue. Take your house to Wheatfield and tell me how your taxes are, or Amherst, or any other town. But side argument, like nobody likes paying taxes, including this guy. But that's simply not true. And if you think you're the one funding the town with your 3,000 square foot house on a 200 by 200 lot, you're nuts. It's the person
you're running the services, and the services are.
Now, we don't want to make a deal with the devil like Huntley, and because we're getting $3 million a year, like or whatever the town of Tonawanda did for years, and have a dump site. We don't have any of that development.
Right.
So what do you want? Like, I really struggle with my friends, some of them in that neighborhood, and say, what do you want?
Right.
What do you want? You want someone to put a dog park, put a 70-acre dog park behind you? Yeah, I would do it. Would you let me invest your money for you? Yeah. You wouldn't like what I have to do with that.
The argument always comes down to this too. When you buy your property, you're to check around you to see what your other zones are, so that you know what to expect to be there. A lot of the people in that area sold Huntress their back land, especially on Bedell. Like, what did they think he was going to do with it? Make a 70-acre dog park, like you just said?
Sure.
Like, they knew it was going to be developed. They knew it was an M1. They bought their homes around an M1. Just like when that happened, when they wanted to put, what was it, Be Quick or something on Stony Point in Ransom. All the people across the street says, oh, we don't want that there. This is a residential neighborhood. Well, that was the zoning there that you bought your property across the street from. Just like when I built on East River, Frank Rebank's property is R2. I understood townhomes were going to go there. I bought here. I invested my money here. I was good with that. I did my due diligence. People need to do their due diligence when they invest their money. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Okay, so where do we go from here? Because the bottom line is, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you say that, I think we should ask the question you started, I'm sorry, it was how does it fit? We want to take opinions out or different groups and say, how does it fit with the comprehensive plan?
So, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna say something a little bit different way. So I'm gonna be, admittedly, we put together a resolution, sent a motion for it. The first time I read this was, okay, this is the first time I've seen the law. We haven't got a copy of it. It's something the attorneys are working on, by the way. And I will shove my head on the tire and tell you to put it in drive. If my brain squirted out, they squirt out. But I looked at this more as not. So there is no guidance as to how big is to do. And obviously the bigger it is, the more impactful. We've seen it repeated. So what's your biggest building ever ran out? What's big?
Top's pretty big.
No, let's talk about Pete, let's talk about
About Stony, probably.
the medical facilities on Staley.
Let's talk about all our bigger developments. And they all have an impact.
Fisher.
Well, they all have impacts to some point, and they all have
Yep.
increased impacts because they're bigger. And okay, they should. You know, obviously, the pharmaceutical corridor has a huge impact. Right. And the pharmaceutical corridor, by the way, is basically this project, but past 115 homes. So,
On the way where it should be.
right, but that was built kind of piece by piece.
Right.
It was built board by board. It wasn't built at once.
It wasn't an intelligent design from day one.
If somebody came in there
No.
now to build that,
You're like, no way.
No.
Scratch.
they wouldn't let them, yeah, okay.
Oh, and the new hotel, the Holiday Inn.
Right, yeah, I mean, all that stuff would kind of not really fly. But what the question becomes is, again, the property's huge. The building can be huge, the impacts are huge.
Mhm.
Should we really be talking about how big a building is allowed? So we don't get into this without really getting into a finite process. You understand my
Is
point?
that not, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I guess my
again-
assumption is that exists in what's called code, right? You know, like
Yeah,
you can't
but-
put 10 stories up, you can't put, doesn't that exist already or
You know,
no?
it doesn't really have a footprint thing, all it's got is open space. So if you take 100 acres or whatever he's got there, there's a bunch of it that's unbuildable.
Right.
Which, you know, the
Natural
argument,
buffer.
well, the argument's always been, can you count the unbuildable property as your green space or your open space? You know, some people will tell you yes, some people will tell you no.
Sure.
You know, so it all depends on what side of the road they want to stand on.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna tell you that even though this fits the zoning and it checks all these boxes in the zoning, it's gonna have a massive impact because it's a massive building that has a lot of traffic. So again, you know, what is the number? So you live in R1C, R1B, you're constrained by lot coverage and all that. You're only gonna put so big a house on your property. We know that, because that's how big your lot is. You're gonna keep a finite amount of green space. Your house is not gonna be more than 4,500 square feet. We'll just put a number out there. I don't know if it's a right number or a wrong number, but it's not going past that. There is no crystal ball to tell you what's going to happen. And that's, I think,
Isn't there
And
a footage, like, isn't it within the 25 feet of a isn't that all, I guess, again, I'm going to, isn't that in code? I guess I would.
No, 3
As
feet.
another, as a layperson, I mean,
and my statement was not just, I wasn't specific or prejudiced towards M1.
Mhm.
I was talking global.
right,
So I'm also talking about B1. I'm talking about B2, B3, all that other stuff. There should be some sort of, and if somebody assembles enough property, can they build a mile by mile square
Yeah,
warehouse?
3 feet by 3
You know,
feet.
and I guess that's how I felt about it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a massive amount of impact, and nobody would ever want that. So where do we stop?
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
so what is what does this million cover from a percentages wise? I'm assuming that's again, not counted against the wetlands, which is undevelopable, that's a known. I go back to, you made that statement, the developer, when he buys that, you better, like that, I'm going back to the developer and saying, sorry, I don't got your back ever again, if you thought you were gonna take a wetland and develop on top of it,
Right.
knowing you can't, and now you wanna count it, that's a you problem. Everything else, hold on, I have an expectation that I can develop it to whatever, so what is, I don't wanna say Amherst, what does anybody but Amherst do? Like, well, what are their rules? We can't be, this isn't new.
I mean, then you always seem to get the persona that, oh my God, it's gonna stall the bridges, it's gonna create.
They're already stalled.
Increase
we
traffic.
should ask
You know,
them
we hear all
to
this,
build it
you know,
better.
but, and again,
That's straw man
You know
stuff.
what I'm
I'm gonna go
saying?
back to my
The
statement.
trucks had to go down the middle bridge, and you know what? I'd still be stuck 50 minutes in line every night I wanted to come
No, I'm
home.
gonna come back to my statement, what is too big? Because a big building has impacts, so what's too big?
Wait a minute, what's the fundamental reality? You're talking about issues that you have no control the New York State Thruway and how traffic works and how the bridges work, not
I'm
our.
not gonna argue that.
authority.
I'm not gonna argue.
So if you're saying to them, okay, this thing is next to the thruway, it doesn't go through their damn neighborhoods like we've got the detours going through now. And you know what? It's a direct access. I think that as a business, I mean, in terms of industrial location, and I had those college courses in graduate school. That's a wrong location for that plant. Not because of anything related to this community, because the access points are restricted.
Now, where are we talking about?
I'm talking about this new project, this
Right,
warehouse.
Okay,
Right, it's right by the thruway, it's a great location, except for one thing, or two things, the bridges at the north and south end.
Right.
They're antiquated bridges that date back to the 1930s or the early.
they'll
40s.
always be our Achilles heel,
And that's right, so
but we
the
know that.
developer, now here's the story, I mean, the developer goes and builds that plant.
Yeah.
Or that warehouse, right? It fails, still has to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
Right? You got a big building out there, you've got all the landscaping, everything else.
Somebody does.
Killer rest.
And I tell you, that site out there is a moonscape. I mean, it was clay mined and everything else has happened to it, and everything else. So what really is changing for the local community? The people on the outside edge of this thing don't like it because they don't like it.
Right.
Not because of any other reason.
But if we give no incentives, because we were gonna get a ton of incentives, now we have somebody that's paying taxes, which may.
That's our incentive, we're getting the tax money for it, and that's vacant
That's-
land right now, we're getting nothing.
not get
Can I make a comment? Can I make a comment? I watched the last town board meeting and listened to the public comments. And I sat there and listened to them all, and it's all their opinion. Most of their opinion was not even based on fact or all the facts. They might have taken a piece of a fact, but not the whole fact. So yes, what it is it's because I don't want the big warehouse. That's the whole, this is Grand Island. We don't want a giant warehouse, but it's zoned that. It's been zoned that for years.
I'm not gonna argue that. How big is too big?
So,
Look at Town and Niagara with Amazon. They're building 3 million square feet on 80 acres.
That's my question.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna answer your question, because I've been.
This
through
guy
it.
wants to build 1 million square feet on 150 acres.
Federal service. What you're dealing with here is you've got a review process. When you get through that process, that's gonna tell you what's too big and what's not too big. Not right now, speculating on what it's gonna be, that's dangerous. You're going to court, and taxpayers are gonna take the load.
Yeah,
What you need to do is go through the process, make a damn decision.
and the thing is that we can decide on design.
Right.
We can make it look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, and with landscaping and everything, and now there's all that zoning where you
To a
have
certain extent,
that
because,
green space instead of all the
but
parking
you only have to
lots.
put so many trees, like Amazon was very clear about that. What they were putting in was.
Yeah.
Pete, I have another question.
Oh,
Pete.
500 trees.
That property is not encompassed by the design standards. Correct?
no,
At all, at all,
no,
It's on one.
no.
nothing.
That's why we're doing the person, so it goes out and wide, because right now, they only do. the
Well, that's what I'm
portion
saying,
is
like, why? All right,
Dave has,
your backyard.
right, Dave has the floor, go ahead, Dave.
You know, Pete, you asked the question, how big should the warehouse be? What should be the maximum size? Has anyone reached out to Mr. Huntress and said, what size warehouse can you build that's still going to be profitable? Because you might get to a point where you might say, well, 500,000 square foot warehouse, and he might say, well, I'm not building that. I can't make any money.
Yeah.
I need the 1.2 million, or I need the 1 million.
I get it.
I think you need that some input from somebody, maybe not Huntress, another developer. I don't care who you pick. But it should be given to you instead of us just creating this fictional number in our heads. 300,000, 500,000, whatever.
My intent is to ask you, how big is too big?
What I would say for too big is I'd like to answer it differently. We're missing a bridge today. The traffic is brutal going through all the neighborhoods. What happens when the bridge just got all these zillion trucks that are coming every 30 seconds goes down?
And they
that
will.
tells me what's too big.
Mhm.
Not the size of the building. It tells me what's gonna happen when the bridge is out. That's too big. You're gonna take all those trucks down through neighborhoods that they don't belong at. And how long is that old bridge gonna last with all those trucks? That's what tells me.
What if Mr. Huntress goes to Niagara County and builds 2 million square feet in Niagara County like Amazon's gonna do, and we get all the traffic?
But
Would we shut Grand Island down?
But that's the Grand Island Bridge. I'm talking about the local bridges.
But you know what? Here's the other side of the story. They're not gonna pay these guys to be caught in traffic jams. They build traffic patterns, like, you know, like
Exactly.
UPS, they build, and they tell their guys always to know how to take right-hand turns. Because they're never stopped at lights,
Truckers never want to be tied up with
No.
delays.
But I get that.
because you have to pay them a lot of money.
Right.
So
So they're not
all
gonna
I'm talking about
do
is,
that.
all I'm talking about is the bridge they're going over to get to their warehouse. I'm not talking about the Grand Island bridges. Because they're going 55 over the bridge.
You're right. But
You're talking about the Long Road Bridge,
You're going,
That's the one I'm
Long
talking about.
Road Bridge.
that wasn't the point here. You're going through a secret process.
Yep.
Don't
Yep.
you think that you're going to be coordinating with that state agency about this?
Yes.
If they don't want to say anything about their darn bridges, that's their problem, all right? And it'll become our problem if they can't keep the bridges operating.
Right, and Amazon was gonna build us a new
Right.
bridge.
Okay, so,
They know.
okay,
I do think it's a tough question, how big is too big, right? But I think that's not ever a question that's being asked by the people opposing it. It's anything in my backyard is too big.
Well,
I don't like it's M1. If you go back to the comprehensive plan, and I have some very dear friends over there, I do not want their quality of life decreased out of any kind of spite towards them or any of that stuff.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, you're all wrong. Because you moved into this property, it's zoned a certain way, and what our plan says is to maximize the return on the tax dollar in the properties that are designated to generate tax dollar. Not at the expense of our citizens, of course. We're not putting a chemical plant in, but zoning has stopped that. So everything else should be about doing everything we can to get revenue in there so the taxpayer with a house pays less.
you're right, Eric, because we haven't thought about this just recently. It's been on the books since the sixties.
It's a long time.
You know, I mean, that's a long, long
Negative
time
anyway,
that's
if you know
always been in place. I mean, now all of a sudden you're gonna change it. You can't do that.
so one of the questions I put to Amazon when they came to town, and you all were here when I said it, I said, we're not here to fit you, you're here to fit us. So the question is, if you can take your development and fit us,
Does it work?
does it work?
Mhm.
And so that's the main
Congress
question.
was listening when you said that.
So my question is, do you fit us? Meaning you need, if you're gonna be in the community, you better blend your building, you better make it so it doesn't stand out and become the object that everybody sees when they come to our community. Like we saw the Radisson, or not the Radisson, but the Holiday Inn Express for years, where it turned into nothing but a graffiti building falling down, and it became the icon of our community. And finally, we got it back online. So the question I have is it proportionally correct in that area? I mean, you have an office park that's across the street, right? Does it match with that? Does it kind of complement that? And does it fit with that?
Yeah, to Paul's point, you will learn an enormous amount in the secret process.
That's
Through
right.
the whole discovery.
Right.
You will understand traffic a little more.
Yeah.
You know, thoroughly, you will understand the sound more thoroughly, you will understand all those pieces a little bit more thoroughly. But, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just you know, it seems like everywhere there's development, it has impacts. And what's too much? Like, you know, you drive down the boulevard, what's the busiest part of Grand Island Boulevard? In front of what?
South End,
What's what's our biggest business? Tops. That's where the busiest
my
spot is.
business spoke traffic. Yeah.
So does that business have an impact on our community? Yes, it does.
Yeah, well, so you put it there.
Is it beyond negative? I don't think so. I mean, traffic flows, it works. I mean, we've done a lot of upgrades. We put turning lanes in, extra lights, all the other stuff. So all the mitigation was done to make it work. But it is the most busiest point. What's our busiest east-west road? State. Why is Staley the busiest road? That doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah, it does, because we have a huge commercial entity on the other end. So does that have impacts on our community? 100%, 110%, absolutely. Does it make it busier than every other road? Absolutely. Is it viable? Yeah, we're starting to walk the edge of it not being. And now the town is reeling a little bit, trying to upgrade the road to make it more safe and this and that, and the other thing. Where if it went through the secret process, we could have said, Mr. Pharmaceutical Corridor, we want you to upgrade this road if you want to put this down there. But the fact that they built a 2x4 by 2x4, it got to where it got
Yeah,
without that happening.
Right.
So we see that's a blunder. We see that's a misstep. We see that's wrong. But we also see that we're all gonna have to pay to fix that now. We don't want to do it again.
Sure.
You
We
know,
also collect the largest tax revenue of any taxpayer on the island, so. To the county, to the sales and use tax. Those guys down there.
Yeah.
Easily,
Yeah.
those two facilities, so when you say have to pay, well, you've collected a
Yeah.
disproportionate amount. Now, am I saying, if I could pick the building up like magic and move it, that's not gonna be moved,
no, it's not.
right? But you can't.
Well, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right.
And I'm not gonna argue that one iota. And I am,
But I don't think this is that, do you? Are you afraid of that? This is that? You wanna make sure that this isn't that?
well,
Or-
we're really, so from my perspective, we're on notice about all that stuff that's going on.
Mhm.
You know, so we don't wanna miss stuff. We don't wanna step in the front. We don't wanna put something in our community that 10 years from now is gonna be a blight. And it's gonna cause mass chaos. So knee jerk to a point, but does it open up some fundamental questions of what is too big and what do we need to make that work? It does.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll argue that all day long because what is too big?
Yeah.
You know, so that's my point. I'm not trying to tell him to take his ball and go home. But I don't want,
But we all know
I don't
that.
wanna hurt my community.
Yeah, but no doubt, but no, the longer you do that, the more you're telling them, you know that, this is the island already has a prevalent, if you go, I travel West New York probably as much or more than anybody.
Yeah.
That is not a development friendly place, it is not a place where people are wanted to come through, it is never a place you're gonna get a great project with great investment, because people feel like it's a kangaroo court kind of system for development.
Right.
Some of that's true or not true, but that's the sentiment, I could bring 30 people in here to tell you that.
Right.
So given that, if you start going, well, what about this? Well, let's slow it down. It just feels like I can stall,
I understand your point.
you know?
I understand your point. I hope you understand mine.
I don't disagree with the
Yeah.
idea, but I
I
feel
mean-
like, I just can't believe, I guess, as we talk, that it's not already kind of determined by the 60/40 and the offsets the property and secret processes. All that feels like it does that, but if you say it doesn't, I trust you.
I think
What do you
Mr. Hunter
do?
brought us something that we didn't realize that could be done.
Yeah.
On that property. I mean, if you look at our charrettes and all that, from the, long range. If you look at all our charrettes, campus, like that, they multiple buildings.
I'm sorry.
It's the best I've sounded.
So like.
It's late at the.
So, I mean, that was always our vision, you know, maybe it was a closed box vision, but that was our vision. You know, that was gonna be an office park threaded through there, multiple buildings, it would probably have the same split coverage, but it would be different kinds of traffic. Because it's office traffic versus 18-wheeler traffic.
I would tell you it's more cars than more of the bridge. I can bring you the bridge study. I'll show you this.
More cars.
That 400 trucks at Amazon has to be on way better than putting 1,100 cars coming
You go
across. the
back
bridge
far
on
enough,
traffic.
So,
And
right,
that
right.
property, the Huntress was gonna put Aquest in there.
Yeah.
And that was gonna be a big office park, and what did they do with that? Well, they fought it tooth and nail.
Yeah, I know.
It's interesting.
I'm with
Well, when does it stop?
It's interesting. No, that's right.
So-
Yeah, and you know, if you really even wanted to think about
If
something,
you get them off the.
we have the giant school
Right,
on Ransom Road.
no doubt.
And somebody finally had the brilliant idea to make it make a stop sign to control traffic. And you have to stop both ways so that people aren't waiting or trying to turn. I mean, there's simple solutions to,
I
like,
mean, next to the high school, the biggest building, commercial building on Grand Island, is
Yeah.
166,000 square feet.
and that high school is huge.
So the,
It makes sense with a population of 20,000 people and a specific land deviation that has half of it that says you can't sewer it. It's already development restricted. You're not gonna have these big buildings.
Right.
But this isn't Colton, New York or something. I mean, we're at 27 square
So,
miles here.
where do we go from here? Because the issue is that we have to send something back to the town board and because it's setting a public hearing on the 18th, right? 18th?
What I read.
Okay, so, then with the public. And then it is, the secret process has been commenced, therefore the public hearing process is gonna begin.
Yep.
And that means it's also going to the planning board. The planning board is gonna get this document. So the town board would like to know what we think about setting a square footage or not. The planning board is gonna wanna know what we feel about that as well, because they're gonna be facing it. So from perspectives that I've received is that we are entitled in town to give a clarification of what we felt the code says. Okay, that the town has the ability to turn around and say, wait a minute, we didn't envision that. Our envision was to do X. And therefore you brought up something that really didn't fit what we expected to happen. Therefore, you do have the right to turn around and make comment on your code and make some suggestions as to what it's gonna do. And on the 18th, they, not only are they starting the secret process for doing a public hearing, but they're gonna do a public hearing on this document.
Yeah, I think, I totally hear what you're saying, but I think it's laughable really if I was a lawyer, which thank God I'm not. But if I was, I mean, the first things in here say, we didn't expect that. Oh, you didn't expect the specific thing you listed called warehouses, distribution centers, milestone facilities, bulk storage, packaging, distributing, parcel delivery services. You wrote it in your code. Now you didn't expect it?
I get it. It's
I
all
would
we're
agree.
doing.
I think it's, again, it's
Yeah, I think it's gonna be.
It's not it.
It's gonna be a laughable, I can see the judge laughing as he puts out the results of this.
I'm all for the exercise though, like, I think my personal opinion is, look, the property, there is relevance, right? You shouldn't put a 2 million square foot warehouse on a 10-acre parcel. I think the parcel will make that impossible anyway. But if you wanna say a percentage of the building should be, that should be something that should be investigated for future development, sure.
I have to stop you there. Who gives you the right to say that, and how do you have the expertise to even say that?
Well, I think when you go through the process, that's when you go find people who can tell you that or not.
Exactly.
Find an
Go
expert.
through the damn process. That's what has to be done. All this other stuff is speculative. Everybody's got an opinion. It's like, you got 10 fingers on your hands. Everybody's got them.
I just like to know too, though, Paul, what do other, like, give me 5 other, what is Orchard Park, what do they do?
You go to the town of Amherst, they'd look at this thing and said, build it. We need the tax money.
Yes.
That's what they would say.
Yeah.
I've got relatives that live and a daughter that lives in Amherst. Everything, the whole lot of concept they have is to build out every buildable piece of property they have.
Right.
Well, the Boulevard Mall has got to be a million square feet.
I mean, look at when, I mean, not to keep beating up Amazon, but when Amazon finally pulled, I believe the mayor or somebody of Hamburg called them up, says, well, we'll take you here. And they built a big facility in Hamburg. And Niagara, I think it went through the town of Niagara's whole process in, I believe, 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, and got full approval. And they had to drive those semis down Packard Road through residents to get to the new building.
Mark Poland Cars made deals with everybody.
Poland cars is what killed this one, so it's not got anything to do with.
Wow,
any
I
local
think
brand
Poland
stuff.
Cars
All
got
right.
pretty mad.
Let's get back onto this question because I need to include it somehow. I have then, would you say there's any issue with at least spelling out what the definition of the items are? Distribution center, multi-storage facility, and warehouses.
I don't have a problem with you describing it in more words. I think that's helpful. I think what I would object to is the 300,000 square feet because it doesn't have any, it doesn't have any legs.
It's an arbitrary number.
Right,
Of course, it's an arbitrary number. I mean, if you said 200,000 or 900,000, it would come up the same way.
So different perspective, how do you feel about the open space requirement? Should we consider wetland and unbuildable lands?
I will tell you, I have an unpopular decision with my friends who are in the development community. If it says wetland and it's like, without a specific mitigation plan that makes sense, like you shouldn't have counted that as, if we told you this is undevelopable, 20% of it, then the 80% is what you should plan off of, and then if it's 60-40, it's 60-40 on the 80%.
The only flaw in that is they haven't gone through the wetland process to have that determined.
Correct.
Right, and
So
then,
you don't know that when you buy the land?
All you know is that there's a map that says there's a wetland there, all right? Doesn't mean it can't be developed. The feds will allow permits to be having some kind of degree of development. You have to go through the process.
Right,
right,
but is it fair to consider that you would build on that, or was it wiser finding, like, with my money, I'd assume that I can't do much
If it
with
was
that.
me, there are so many public benefits of preserving wetlands. I count that as open space.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't go splitting hairs here about.
And that's an interpretation.
I agree.
All-
That's an
all-
interpretation.
All the
the
subdivisions,
thing
the
is that we need regulatory people in here that need to manage it.
Mhm.
We can't just go, okay, we said go ahead and do this, and then just not look.
So you said our biggest building's 150,
176,000.
176,000.
What buildings?
It's the biological.
That's both of them combined.
That's one building.
That's one building. That's not the whole campus, that's one building.
Well, it's,
Is that including the new addition they put on?
oh, no. Rhonda and I,
There's a guy in Stony who's gotta have that in sheds alone on his property.
Now it's bringing in,
I know.
It's good out. It's
I have a
kind of
comment.
funny to think, like, your parcel, you slice it one
Yeah,
way.
yeah, Dave.
when
Like,
everybody comes in
that's
for a
why
sub,
you-
I know this is different, but when they come in for a subdivision, they always count the wetlands as green space or open space.
Right.
It's always used that way. So now you're gonna say we're not gonna use it on the M1 like that?
Just asking questions.
It sounds punitive. when
I'm
you
not
say
saying that, I'm just asking questions.
Right. I'm a little naive not working it. I just assume that this gets done all over the world every day, that there's some standard.
Or what?
For, well, how do people determine it everywhere? And whether they're counting a green space, there's wetlands all over the place.
Yeah.
We're in a watershed, like, like.
Well, the whole important thing.
One other question,
Next time is open space and they're preserved.
who worked for the Corps? You did. Okay, they just passed a new law, I think a couple of months ago, that if the wetland is a pocket and not attached to a waterway,
Attached to a navigable water, yeah.
right,
or-
you can do away with them. So like there's like for example, there's a lot on Alt Boulevard that was loaded with wetlands, but they're not attached to a waterway. That was not buildable 2 years ago. That lot would be buildable in today's market.
Perhaps unless the historic review shows that it was a connection that had disappeared sometime over
Yeah, other
the period of centuries or
I mean,
something.
generally speaking, the last 10 years I've been building on the island, the majority of the lots have some type of pocketed wetland on them, and we would get denied a building permit,
Well, yeah.
which now isn't going to be the case now.
That Supreme Court decision, you're correct. There wouldn't be waters of the United States anymore, unless that's repeated again.
okay, let's stay on the subject, because otherwise we're gonna get into a whole different.
Yeah, we can go to.
This is being published, and I don't wanna get caught on, us going off into another world.
I don't know about that.
Okay, so the, dissecting this, so the definitions that we're talking about adding to the M1 code basically could be acceptable by the committee or by the board. But the question,
Facility one,
go ahead.
I really don't like the first couple of sentences, they're very hard to.
Explain to me.
Distribution facility means lands, buildings, or structures where shipments of tangible personal properties are stored, processed, or delivered to customers. Okay, term does not include establishments of tangible personal property made to retail customers. Explain.
Okay,
Not a safe
That-
club.
that's an,
Hard to read.
So,
No, that's what I'm saying, it's very difficult.
so Paul, you don't go shopping at Tops of your 18-wheeler. That's
But-
basically
but
the
it-
difference.
that's a distribution center.
It's just, I know in distribution centers, the wording there is just,
It's tricky.
it's very hard, to we could maybe word it a little bit.
That could be a little bit more complicated.
How does it work, Pete, when Tops gets deliveries from 18-wheelers?
I'm sure that works great. But I'm saying, they don't have a lot full of them.
Merriam-Webster said the distribution center is a product storage and shipping building that stores goods a company produces.
Right.
Yeah, she's a little more concise.
Yeah.
Who wrote that?
Merriam-Webster, that's Webster Station.
Webster Dictionary.
That's the
But it's
distribution
not
center?
always produced there, or a kind could be,
Let's say the where it's produced,
Yeah.
right, is that company produces. Somebody produced it, right? I don't think the definition matters as much as what you're gonna do with it, but I do read, I read it driving, like I said, but I had to read it a couple times and make it hard
All
to
right.
read it.
It just, when you put this in front of a whole bunch of people, especially if you put this in front of the public, nobody understands.
Yeah, why is the mini storage, did you have any, I know you said you just saw this, but why this break, why, are we protecting a storage facility or two, or why the mini
So
storage?
we have a lot of,
Category,
so there's a lot of mini storage in M1 currently.
on the island,
Yes,
Correct.
Yeah.
on Bedell Road.
So Bedell Road is
Yeah.
pretty much all M1. We have that. Now, if you don't cycle that out somehow, now if you potentially change the zoning and allowable uses, now those are existing non-conforming. Now they are worth less financially when you go.
sure, okay,
You
that
know,
makes sense.
So again, you and I have talked about my personal, situation with that, and that is something I would not do.
Right.
So I would never endanger something existing.
Right. And then warehouses are in there as well. I mean, to me, you gotta look at the code being, what does it mean for the whole island? Meaning it could be a parcel anywhere other than Long Road. And when I looked at the mapping, you have a lot of M1 sitting on Bedell and Long Road, and you have a bunch that are sitting on Staley Road.
Yeah.
And that's all your M1 that you have, and M2.
That is the biggest piece of M1.
Well, that one, yeah, but there's the one that's on Bedell or on Staley is quite big as well.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
it straddles the road.
Yep.
And it's as big on the south side as it is on the north side. So, and it has the greatest potential for this in the neighborhood, and it's outside the sewer district.
Right.
A lot,
But they have their own package plan.
yeah, there's a lot of ifs on that one, a lot of buts on that one.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of.
And what we're talking about is 7 times bigger.
I mean, the building across the street, I believe that the building.
That's a lot.
The old Moore building. I think that was only like 60 or 70,000 square feet. So to me, it was like, wow. So you have a building across the street, that's 1 million square feet, right? And you go proportionally, wow, you can put a whole lot of Moores into it.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, keep in mind, so the original and the surveys we have here and past submissions were multiple buildings, which actually added up to more than what he's talking about as a singular building.
Right.
Yeah. But they were by piece.
Right.
Right, those
And that
are-
was more of a passenger vehicle traffic, it was less truck, and it was more office oriented, call center type stuff. So actually maybe more trips, less big vehicle trips. So different kinds of traffic, more mobile traffic. So completely different than anything we ever thought would happen.
Well, I
That's
disagree with anything we ever thought, 'cause I was at those shreds. We hoped they put an office park. You can go buy office space right now, and none of us knew what was gonna happen
Correct.
4 years ago,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So we had hoped it would be a park-like setting.
Right.
We had hoped it would be trees and lollipops,
Right.
right?
Like unicorns running
But it
around.
always could have been, and we never changed the code from hope to require.
Correct.
So like with that, I still think it's like, the back to the million, it's a huge building.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a huge building.
Yeah.
But it's a huge piece of property. If I bought a huge piece of property, I'd go, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a really small building on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. They're like, what else were you gonna do with, when you bought 100 something acres?
Either that or you're gonna put multiple buildings.
I saw to
Maybe.
accomplish something here, why don't we just strike distribution facilities, including warehouses, may not exceed 300,000, just strike that whole end out of that first definition.
So you're gonna strike it there, and you're gonna strike it under warehouse?
Yeah, did that
Yeah.
too. Yep, get rid of that.
I always overreact
Define-
when I see this.
define
Like, this is ready to
distribution
attack.
center.
This is a-
And define warehouse.
First time I saw it.
And then go to C. Jump all the way to C,
Usually we cook it a lot more for you. See.
which is 70483. Warehouses, and you have it again there, to amend and add warehouses and distribution centers not to exceed 305 feet per
C.
Second page,
Yeah.
second page, second page.
Well, yeah,
It's
same
add-
story.
add- add-
Keep going.
Uses of light.
Keep going.
Oh, this C, I got it.
It's sort of.
Well, you know, what we-
Is it C up?
I put 300,000 square foot. I put a firewall between four buildings and I have the same project. Is that better or worse? And does that meet the, like, I think you get back to, do you want the thing on there or not as its own for it? And that's the chicken of the egg. I mean, it was actually approved in the past for $1.8 million worth of rooftop coverage. Did that have more impervious surface? Of course it did. It's bigger.
Yeah, it's bigger.
Now each building has its own parking lot, which was probably 10% too big. So instead of one parking lot,
Right.
you know what I mean? Lot coverage wise, probably way more intense.
Your subcontractors will love it. 4 electrical boxes, 4 sets of
Yeah.
plumbing, 4 sets of HVAC,
Different
4
meters,
sets,
or
all different,
tax bills,
right?
Okay.
so I mean,
Probably netting the same.
and listen, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying
I
no.
think it's worth kicking around. Like, I think investigating anything is the hallmark of good process, right? But at
Right.
the same point, like, I like right away when someone puts a number on it like that, I don't wanna hear a number. We wanna investigate the right process. Is it relevant to square footage? Is it relevant to whole acreages? Is it relevant to the 60-40 rule already?
Mhm.
Should we be looking at relevance by size? When you start putting numbers on things, it feels real specific to me, like you're trying to do something.
You're putting a hard stop on it.
It also,
And it could be totally false. It just feels that way.
Where did the 300,000 square feet? Did someone, somebody, well, why don't we just put down 1 million?
yeah,
I don't know what the number is.
He said, I don't know how big too big is, right?
Yeah.
That's what, so he's,
the thing is the 300,000 imparts knowledge that this town government does not have. They can't support that number.
No, we can,
well,
I wouldn't have to tell you that
The big
that number is
numbers.
arbitrary.
I mean, I would say, there's no question. I mean, looking for the foundation for the 300,000. I mean, we're exploring some other rationale for setting the square footage of a property based on, acreages. But it was more applying to the cities than it was to the suburbs. So,
No, that's
Well,
not-
how about our services? How about the fire department? Can you support a 1 million square foot building? Because
if one starts on fire anywhere, it's burning down. To the city of Buffalo, but the fire suppression systems, I knew the argument, because Amazon made this
Wait a
argument. I
minute,
sat through.
having been a volunteer fireman for a long time before, in another
it's only
community
3 stories,
here.
I know.
I
Another,
mean, the thing is that when you have that kind of exposure, you're gonna get more money out of the town to support the equipment that's going to be able to take care of it. You know? And it's also why you have
Good point.
mutual aid agreements and everything else with the communities outside the island.
okay.
Makes sense.
So, this is not an easy question. If you want to put this forward back to the town board indicating that we feel that the footage of the, square footage of the building is, debatable. I
don't know what you say.
that, I don't know. I mean, it's arbitrary. And the question is, can you defend it? And the lawyers are only ones gonna say they can defend the course, but of course, always say they can defend it no matter what.
Right.
Down to it, they're the ones that always get paid,
They get paid.
bad or otherwise.
There's just no relativity to it.
No.
That's the problem, and I think that's where the percentage comes in,
the
because
40%.
that's relative.
I mean, when I was working with the planners on this one, the issue came down to is you should be looking at hard services with the building and that be your 40%. Then you have a better chance of your building being acceptable to the size of the lot. Versus just saying the lot to be, or the building to be 40% of your property and not taking in consideration all the hardscape that goes along with
With
it.
roads and correct,
But
parking,
yeah,
all
So
that.
there's that, and then there's the other side, which is getting that total piece of property with the wetlands. Is it included, is it not?
Yeah.
So that looks like the two big things tonight.
Well, those are always been your driver of your acceptable sizes and project. Those have always been the things that drove you there, again, even at 300,000, this is 1.5 times our biggest building we have.
yes.
And we are maybe citing that we're having some difficulties there. servicing that.
There's no doubt it's a big.
Yeah,
Well,
but you know what, I heard some of the arguments of these people that have been complaining about this project here is that this is going to be a precedent for warehouses all over the whole island.
Well, that's a-
No,
This is
that's
the
it.
only location that actually works with the transportation
Well,
system for a
Well,
warehouse.
again, it's the biggest piece
Except
of
for the
property.
bridges.
Yeah, the other big part is pharmaceuticals is the next biggest parcel for M1.
And again, I'm happy they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm not saying I'm not happy.
We just wouldn't do it that way now. I mean,
No.
that's what called learning is about, so you apply it to your.
Eric, the thing started in a garage and it
Right.
just blossomed from there.
I mean, if there was a do-over going on, I'll be honest with you, if you close your eyes, the best place on the island to put that is down there.
To say, we just pick it up, I would drop it right in the spot, and we'd call it, you know, and
All right, I think
Somebody
everybody
would be mad,
I think
but
everybody
everybody
be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Well, most people be happier.
the people behind it wouldn't, I'm telling you, no matter what you build, I get it, I wouldn't, you know, I like my open space behind me too, but,
Yeah, I get it.
you know. I
Okay.
love behind the wetland.
All right, we need to wrap this up because it's closing in on,
What is our place in this, though, is to
What you
offer an opinion? Is to
So-
talk about the dialogue we just had?
I don't think the town board knows exactly what to do. You know, I think they just wanted to hear it from somebody else.
I really think the town board, let the thing go through the process.
Right.
Let the process define it. That's your defense action.
Well, and that. Agree, 110% I agree. So then if that's your universal thought, send that to the board.
you know, that's always been my thought from day one. I felt that the plan, should have been moving through the boards already. I'm surprised that it didn't have the board's review before it actually started the process, but I understand the planning board though. Planning board basically got this document. And they punted to the town board. And then that's why the town board started the secret process. And therefore, the planning board wanted to hear the secret before they actually got their hands on it. Well, the secret's done. Now the planning board has the ability now to take it and with all the ammunition that's coming out of the secret, but
I'm gonna say, so I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you, say it's not done, it's to the next leg of the,
yeah,
leg of the process.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that creates.
Well, yeah,
more
I mean, the secret.
then the next
basically
leg will
is
create
anything
more.
Yeah.
Until, you know, the music gets so soft, you know, that now, okay, now it's time to, you know, put up or shut up, you know, so.
I like that opinion. It feels to me like the thing is this conversation at this time is about a project. Pretty obvious, right? So if the cave people, the Citizens Against Virtual Everything, the group that exists here in Grand Island, are going to be against this anyway. They're going to show up at every meeting you have. They're going to not understand the process.
When they go to your next meeting and you put 300,000 in there, they're gonna say, why isn't it 400,000? Why isn't it 200,000? Why isn't it 50,000? Who decided that? And they become the experts, you know.
Yeah.
They'll try to. And
I'm sure it's only.
It just feels like, right, like, oh, hey, maybe a moratorium
no,
because the building's stupid. So you're about stopping a project.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
the
this doesn't
moratorium-
seem like a genuine conversation. I believe 100% you're concerned and you're right and you're honest and you have integrity in what you're saying. I don't believe this whole thing is all about that. This is about stopping a project. And if you're gonna stop a project, man up and do it within your rights legally and then lawyer up and be prepared. Because right now we're in the illegal waters. We're getting real close to it.
Well, and then the other thing is, it's 6 months, so now you're taking away all of the fall, and now you're moving into February, and you're taking away from the man again of being able to build.
Well,
because
that's on a moratorium status. I'm gonna speculate, I don't know this, but I'm gonna speculate he's 6 months from at least finalizing the secret process.
Yeah.
So the music stops playing,
Right.
you know, when it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth,
It's already,
you know, but that
Yeah.
traditionally
Yeah.
designed
see,
your project.
you planned it. I
But
guess.
even if there's a legal challenge, you can't bring that challenge until the decision's made.
Right,
Right, and the courts will throw it out.
Right.
So, you know, and I've seen that happen in federal court a number of times.
Right.
You know, they get all hyped up about this thing, they wanna stop the project, they think they got all the ammunition to do it, and the judge says, did anybody make a decision on this yet?
Mhm.
No.
Right.
Finish your process,
Right.
you know?
Okay. All right.
Jim, is it possible to push our minutes to the town board and not have to talk about this document on this particular board? And just tell the town board, here's what all our comments were? Instead of going through this document line by line, do we agree to 300,000? Do we agree to this? Is that a possibility? To do it that way?
So listen,
Complete the process.
yeah, I would have to think that you could send the cliff notes, and I think they're gonna really quickly get your direction. You know, so I wouldn't think that they need.
Well, I think
I'm sorry.
Have a resolution come to this board.
we don't agree with the moratorium.
You don't want to.
No, we don't, no. The
No,
moratorium that I think was, the moratorium wasn't gonna give anything other than try to get us right where we are today. I mean, the moratorium would have pushed it 4 months and it'd be right where we are today.
Well, this discussion here
So,
tonight proved to me that there would be no support for a moratorium, because we talked about potential changes that nobody could come up with. You know, so that to me proves that that's the wrong way.
Yeah.
I always feel that the secret process. I always say good projects go through and bad projects die, you know, and they die in secret. You know, it's what usually kills them.
yeah.
You know, but again, the question comes to my mind, what is too big?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's like I said, you're not gonna get that answered until you get through your process.
right.
Yeah.
right,
I mean, quickly, the thing that I would say, one, you better take care of Long Road and how traffic comes and goes out of it. Figure out how to get the bike path on Long Road to be functional without somebody getting killed, because if you try to go from West River to Grand Island Boulevard, it's pretty much a difficult maneuver because you're trying to dodge people getting onto the,
Yeah, that's running with scissors up the
yeah,
stairs. I get it.
that really needs to be looked at. And the other one is, adding the vegetation around it, so it softens the building, so it's not,
And those are
it's so
things you can ask for
obviously.
during the
That's absolutely
process.
part of the process. You can ask for
Exactly.
design standards to be applied. You can ask for things.
Yeah.
You know.
Which like Pete directed me, we could ask for all that at the planning board level. Am I correct, Pete?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
Even though
so-
it's not in that district for the design standard.
Never hurts to ask.
Right, okay.
If you could have more cake, you could say no, you could say.
I'm the guy who asked for cake,
I
you know
know,
that.
that's
So
what I
like,
mean. Right.
all day, I'm just curious if there's any leverage once you get out and.
If you want it, ask for it.
There is.
There is,
You know,
great, then
Yeah.
you're crazy not to ask them.
Well, I mean, we don't take advantage of that in some cases, especially residential, that every house that's built. The developer is supposed to put 2 trees on the property. But if we don't press it, they don't put the trees on.
right, and that's the thing, we've gotta pay attention
Right.
to this.
I mean,
project.
Oh, yeah.
I could talk all day about, I mean, a business puts up on a site plan, turns around and shows 8 trees. They put them up, but then a disease hits them, they die, but we don't go back and put them up. They're on the site plan. So the question is, why aren't they back?
But that's in the new or the.
Yes, that's
Recommended
thought of
design
in a
plan
new
amendment.
form
that'll
standard.
offer look back to the new.
Exactly.
Drives it.
So, I mean. I think the comments that you all made were great, and that's the sentiment you're gonna have from across Grand Island. I mean, there's people that, Bill, it's in the backyard, it's 200 feet from my house, and that's questionable. But the bottom line though is that, we did have the movement to stop one development, and they're feeling this is kind of a continuous of it.
So Ron, I'm just gonna ask it in the minutes, I didn't really try to make any comments, I was just trying to put things out there.
Correct.
Yeah, make sure that, you know, I'm not trying to represent it here and at the town board.
Right.
I'm just trying to facilitate some conversation with you guys and let you answer the
Well, that's
questions.
been answered, we asked you a lot of questions, you gave us answers to what you had, so.
I want everybody to understand that I'm not trying to steer.
No,
this board
you're not
to make a
steering.
decision.
I'm not steering this
It's
conversation.
admirable that you
Um,
call us all together to discuss it, because, you know, this could have been done the other way.
Well, I don't think you had to worry about steering anything. I think the committee has pretty much steered itself.
They're strong, I completely agree. No argument there.
I mean, we all have our opinions about this, because, and again, from my perspective, we're putting something down that affects, not just what people want us to talk about, but if the Wegmans come in here and they turn around, they're a distribution center.
Oh, they would love to have that 200,000 square feet.
So I mean,
It all depends.
yeah,
Well,
100,000.
and I don't know if anybody knows this, but
10 acre parcel.
I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you a secret that I found out. You know who's gonna be the biggest person that's gonna be in that facility? Target.
probably.
Yeah,
Target was always the other whale in the room when they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Target was looking.
because they're just, the box stores are, it's just costing too much money. And I mean, even when I try, even have time to even go shopping, I go to the store. I mean, besides the grocery store, but a clothing store or something, there's nobody there. And the racks are like full.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't, and I don't know.
COVID changed everything.
You did.
Yeah,
It did.
Okay, so the recommendation is we send our comments to the town board.
By the
and-
minutes.
by the minutes, and then also to the fact that, with the one understanding, let the process begin. Let the board start do the review. Let conservation look at it, recreation look at it, traffic advisory board look at it, all of them, and come back with their recommendations, how they feel that this would be better fitted, or how it can better fit within our community. And
Yeah, I think any size recommendation, whether it be by square foot, by percentage of property, whatever the methodology is, be guided by somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Well, I think right now it is guided by the acreage of the property, and that's always been our rationale, sure. You know, but, you know, there's. just
I think in
a
the
lot-
future, let's go find an expert who tells us, well, what is everybody doing then before someone says
Right,
272,000. I love
Right.
that number. It's my lucky number.
right.
Yeah.
Let her ride.
Might as well be.
I get it.
So
Yeah.
currently we have, our code currently is a 60/40. But that 40 does not include hardscape. There's no wording that says it has to do that.
Correct.
And there's no word,
That's who you talk to.
but what about, Dave, of the 60? Are wetland, or the 100, is wetland lands included in that?
Wetlands considered open space.
Right.
And open space is part of the number or not?
Yeah.
The residential, Dave said, yeah, I mean, he's not really only, right?
That's residential. On the commercial side, on the M1, Dave, isn't M1 that M1 is 100% of space?
I'm sorry, say that again, Jim.
M1 doesn't have a number for open space to it. Is that
Not
correct?
to my, not to my knowledge. And
Correct.
M1 has no landscaping requirements whatsoever.
Correct.
Nothing, nothing. I always ask for, hey, can you give me a couple of trees? And they're willing to do that, but they don't have to. They don't have to plant a bush, nothing. In an M1. So I think,
That's why.
Pete
that's
said,
why- I mean,
like Pete said, that would be something I would ask on the planning board. I would
Yeah.
say we'd like a beautiful, you want to build a 1,000,000-square-foot building? Let's have a great landscaping plan.
Dave, I'll buy a copy if you say park-like setting.
Park-like setting. I got that from a good guy I know, gave me
Well,
that.
If we weren't talking about the thing that's right on the elephant in the room, but the whole situation with this on our doorstep. Would we change the M1? Would we turn around and start looking at it from a different perspective on how it fits within our code? Or how we wanted to see it developed?
You know, an interesting charrette would be
I mean, I'm talking-
another piece of.
Not talking about it
And cover
affecting
it
what's going on
64,
now, but just
see how it
affecting the
looks.
future.
You know what I mean?
I'd be doing the same thing since I've been doing according to my mom since I was one. My first, why?
Like,
Well, we talked about the landscaping.
Why? You know, so if it's, but
Yeah, but if you get the
changing,
landscaping, that's so what? Why do you have to change the code then?
You gotta leverage it. Now, I get it.
Well,
Well,
right now though, if
you
if
got
they can say-
precedence with what you did on one site, you can use it on another site. You don't have to change the code.
Well, I would say if
like-
residential is 40 and this is 100, 100's wrong, because there should be on the island, our concert,
Or you may be right, but this project,
plan for future Grand Island doesn't say pave it all over.
yeah,
Right, so there should be some natural features in anything we do. So I think throwing something in like that should be part of the law,
well,
right?
yeah,
Whether it's,
from this.
I don't know, you make it
forward,
5%, 10%, you should say, but we can look at M1 and say, we should get a landscape, should be part of M1. and we can work on it from that point
The
of view.
design standards we're working on would
That would
automatically
do it.
then cover that. Any commercial on the island would be the design standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be included.
I think that's where you're gonna make the impact.
You know,
Don't
That
forget,
is
the design standards currently is only Grand Island Boulevard. Currently, so like if we do these new design standards and it's all over, now we've got the landscaping design standards in an M1.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It gives us that tool.
Which was the biggest change right off the bat. It's for all.
Correct.
Yeah, it's still unbelievable to me that it isn't, like, it isn't that way already. I would see a more specific set for like a town center, an extra on top, but the fact there's not standards.
come on, Eric, it's Grand Island.
That's why we,
I like where we're going on that then. That's
Yeah.
a quick positive. Let's
Right.
make it some traction. That's
Done
good
some
stuff.
great work over the past year.
You,
Yeah.
absolutely.
now you know why we're doing
One
the farmer
second at a
standards and
time.
apply for all Grand Island.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll pass the comments forward, and there'll be comments. There won't be a edited copy of what's been presented as the law.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
feedback, right? So
Bullet
that's what they were
Anybody,
asking for.
anybody against that?
So just bullet points.
Just bullet
Here's our
points.
topic, bullet points,
Bullet points.
questions.
Throw your
Yeah.
computer in the river after we're done with this meeting. And lose that recording. Because it's spitballing. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but spitballing should be,
100%.
Well, I want to have it open. I mean, if everybody's paranoid about saying anything about what's on your mind,
you won't get it done.
they won't get it done.
Right.
The bottom line is you're not going to get a true answer about what should be done.
I think we have a problem with the recording.
Oh, I hate that.
Now, when I did the screen share, I think it took our mic away. That's why I hit something and it went berserk on. But I took the notes tonight, so. it'll be
Yeah, we'll go off the
there.
notes.
Okay. So there's technical issues. Okay, so with that, moving on to number 7.
There's
Roundtable.
more?
Roundtable.
Oh, my.
But wait, there's more. There's 5 more. You're only halfway down the list.
You don't think for a minute that I would be done.
Be out of here before.
We got 5 minutes.
God, he's got 3 more items here. Oh, man.
Yeah, the other 2 are really easy.
I could talk about a couple things as long as this is kind of in this room.
Okay.
Let's do that like an executive session.
All right.
We can do that.
So roundtable, we're still moving forward with ErieNet.
Yes.
Right? And I think we're waiting for the contract. Them.
Yeah,
Specifying,
they were doing some more engineering and we're gonna come back with more detailed costs.
correct.
We've also heard from the CWA, who was contacted us on behalf of Verizon. And let us know that Verizon really is interested in bringing fiber to the home. They've already got all the full rights, they could do it. But the town needs to show interest back to Verizon that we are interested in. And therefore go through the state that has a program. If we could work with Verizon and work with, follow the guidelines provided by the state, they'd be willing to help when, provided they get some incentive from the state to do it. And they could do it, and this is the union talking now, it wasn't anybody from the, directly from Verizon's, executives. But, they gave us some contacts, how to contact Verizon and start a conversation going to see how we could get them involved in a project that would also be funded by some of the money that's out there to do projects.
Would they run parallel to ErieNet? Or would it be by alternative to
They would need
ErieNet?
it.
Huh?
They would need it.
They would need.
They would
not.
not need.
Would not need,
really-
okay.
Okay.
They would not need green light. They would like to be the green light.
Right.
And they've got all, so they can make it happen because they've already done the planning. They did the planning for FiOS to all of developments on the island before the executives committee for FiOS. COVID changed a lot of that. Now they took another look at it. And they're saying, well, maybe FiOS wasn't such a bad idea. The engineering's up the table for most of Grand Island already.
Yeah.
And they do have all the poles. They do have all the accesses. They do have the conduits, they do have the facilities that could make it happen. And, you know, if we could show some interest there and maybe get something going, and be more detailed about what we'd like to see and where we'd like to see it. You know, maybe we go seek some money and get some grants and make something happen.
All right, we need to figure out our own strategy then as to. when-
Yeah, that's, I think, a conversation for, you know, in our.
Yeah.
tech board.
Yeah.
later on.
I mean, we got, as I would say, a bird in the hand with hearing that. Hearing that,
You've got green light interested. And,
Yes.
you know, but
I got a call from
those
somebody else.
things take time.
I got a call from somebody else.
First light,
First Light,
Yeah,
First Light's
First-
on the island already.
Yeah,
They're doing the industrial areas.
yeah, they aren't doing fiber at home.
Right.
They're doing, business.
They're
And
doing the
they're- and
commercial.
they would provide backhaul facilities for a fiber to the home provider like we.
So what's the story that's happening with Spectrum where they're dropping the lines down into the ground and they're not fiber, they're still using the conventional cable?
They're going underground with cable.
And they're not putting fiber. I mean, they just
Oh.
tore up a whole section of our street, you know, on May and June,
And they bury them.
and they buried,
Is that they were doing down there?
and they only did half the block. I said to them, what about the other half of the block? I know, I don't know, this is what my boss told me to do.
I.
That half the line wasn't in the way of whatever they're really doing.
I've sought some input from Spectrum, when hearing that was here. Mark Meyerhofer, who is the, you know, our business relationship with the VP of this area that we talked to in Spectrum. He now works for HearingNet, so I don't have a contact. I've asked Kristen to, you know, seek a contact so we have somebody to talk to about things like this and outages and, you know, things that are going on with Spectrum. The franchise deal, which has been going on for, you know, since forever, since Adelphia, we don't have an agreement, so, you know, we need a contact to talk about things like that with Spectrum. And right now, I don't have it.
I think all in all, that we're in a positive position to get competition for Spectrum on Grand Island for the residents. That will give them competition on pricing, but competition on performance. And I think that's the biggest issue that benefits. I mean, doing the government side of it, where we're gonna put fiber in for our water plant or sewer plant, that's gonna be beneficial for keeping the cost of doing business down for the town. To the tune of maybe 30,000 a year by doing this. But the bigger benefit, I think, on this exercise we're doing is the benefit to the residents on the competition to get better performance and money. I think that, I mean, that's the piece that people aren't hearing, that when we speak to them, they're going, wait a minute, that's what I like to hear. What you do in government is one thing, that's nickels, but what I can do from my own home, that's much more important.
Well, are both Greenlight, so both Greenlight and Verizon Fios is looking for input from residents of Grand Island that say, hey, if you've got it, I want it. So you can do that by going to the website, put your address in, say, can you provide a service? Let me know when you can provide a service. That's showing interest.
Yeah.
Right, and the same things with Verizon. If you go on our website, I don't know if you got the Verizon link up yet.
I was gonna ask you if that's not, did you look?
I haven't had a chance to look
I can't-
before I come in. I
can't
wanted to, I
remember
forgot about
which
it. I put a link on our tech board website that you can go to and go right to Greenlight and make a request, ask for a service at your home. And the same thing for Verizon, for Fios. So go, you know, if they see the interest here in Grand Island from somebody, you know, for competition,
So Fios is their only product to this point, because I had something in the mail
well,
about.
Fios is fiber, okay? Verizon is offering 5G over.
I've got 5G from Verizon.
Yeah.
And then I
No,
just
no,
got something in the mail
internet.
about 5G TV.
Yeah, for internet. Well, that's with the, with their new service, but it's gonna be limited in more bandwidth. And it's not like having fiber. You're not gonna get, you know, a gigabit service with 500 megabits a second service over the air. It's not gonna happen.
because you're sharing here.
You mean for TV or?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the 5G service.
Your internet, well, all that 5G means is, that's the gigahertz that they're frequencies.
Hey, that was better than the DSL I had. from Verizon.
You're way over my head. If it says no service, I do something else.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. Yeah.
What's that?
If it says Verizon, I think we should look elsewhere. I'm telling you, we've been fighting with them up in our church, and they are the worst. We're getting nowhere
We
with,
won't.
no.
We gotta move.
Tell them to go to the grander, one of the grander idea page.
And just complain.
Search Spectrum, and they'll get 8,000 comments of people who wish they had a different. If they want a quick market study, they get the complainers page, and that's, it's full of it.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get a telco.
Yeah.
Company to do.
Oh, I looked out my
It's
business.
expensive.
They told me 6 weeks to fix it. Verizon.
I know
So I
what they
couldn't
want.
do credit cards or
I
anything for
was-
6 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that was
Like
my life.
And,
Yeah.
I had it fixed in 3 days, which was still painful. And, yeah, it was,
I just spent time out in church where they putting in, and they refused to put a new node in it. And it went down 3 times in our daycare, and that's where all our phones go through. It was a safety issue.
Yeah.
oh, now we're back in,
We've been calling for 2 months.
but now we're back in Verizon. Maybe we should stop. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to, so I want to run you too late tonight, but I felt that the Ethernet and what's going on with technology on Grand Island, that's really important to talk about.
Let's, got more rounds there.
Yep. You got anything?
Me?
Nope.
Mm-mm. No,
Nope, no president chamber, citizen of the years in October, winners will be announced tomorrow or the day after.
Oh,
Some nice set of winners this year, some really deserving folks again, so I'm always amazed after. Yeah, like this number, 17 years, for me at the chamber going through COI, that there's always people that should have won that aren't on the list still, so still, man, we always like, we're gonna run out of nominations, there's
No, we got deep bench.
really good people, so that's coming out soon, that's the next big thing.
It's a good community.
Good. Yep. Paul? Good. Paul,
No, I don't have.
I already said my piece. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a meeting dates?
We can talk about that.
We did already? Sorry.
Oh.
Dave, you got anything you wanna talk about?
Oh, Miss Dave, sorry.
Our planning board meeting, we had nothing on the agenda last month, and I haven't got the packet for this month for September, so I don't know what's.
Be like,
Yep, I would assume.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll second that motion to adjourn.
Okay,
do you want to talk about the next meeting day though?
yeah, I'd like to talk, so my question is, Tuesday seems to be a rub.
sure, now race is almost over here, switch it. Here you are,
No, it isn't just you.
moving the target.
We're up that old song the way we were. I
Huh?
like, when we had it on,
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Wednesdays.
yeah, but this is.
Wednesday's hard to record.
2 days super laborious, like I have,
Wednesdays and Tuesdays are bad for me.
I could do it
Thursday works fine.
Thursday,
Yeah,
works, except for the
Thursday,
third
no.
Thursday, that's chamber, everything else but that.
We've got Tuesday.
We have the last Thursday.
What's everyone doing on Friday nights? Anybody available? Friday night, like 7 PM?
My library's in you alive.
I could be here for a long
Yeah,
time.
me too. We do a date night meeting. Is that a thing we can make up? Can we bring our spouses and buy them dinner?
That would not work.
No? All right, dang it. You need my idea.
So how does the 4th Thursday work?
Of course, Thursday's fine with me. Isn't there a board on that board? That's conservation. What's your board?
No. Not third.
Third. Okay,
For Thursday, we work fine.
if it's the fourth Thursday.
I think that's how we ended up there.
Gloria, 4 Thursdays
Well,
for
that's
you?
because there's 5
Sure.
Thursdays this
Just
month.
let me know the date. I'm good.
Hold on, let's see what's on this board.
I have the conservation board. You're telling me the conservation board's on the third?
I thought it was the third, but I get so many meetings.
I mean,
There's no, but
technology is
there's
the
out-
third.
there's agricultural, advisory board, but they're in the morning.
Huh?
They're in the morning. so
Who's in
there's-
the morning?
No, it's technologies at night.
That's on the 17th. If I look at September,
I showed up
Technology is on the
21st,
14th. No, wait a minute. It's the 21st.
which is the third, so there's nothing on the fourth.
I have conservation board.
On the fourth Thursday,
Yeah.
September 1, 2, 3, 4 would be the 28th.
Okay,
The third would be the 21st. That's where technology is.
correct.
So there's nothing on the fourth.
Look up the constitution.
Where do you think it is? Third, okay, 1, 2, 3, that would be the 21st. No technology, so let me go back. I don't see all.
Cause we just met the other day.
Let me go back and do it a different way. This site's not, on for these things.
I mean,
Conservation's the fourth. The 28th.
how about the second? 14th, is that ZBA?
The second,
The 14th, is ZBA,
second, I think.
EDAB,
on the 14th, something. The
Yeah.
second Thursday?
Second.
ZBA is the first, EDAB is the second.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, there it
Technology
is.
the
I got it
third.
now.
So I think we were
I
meeting
didn't know this,
tonight.
you know, I
because
was part of the meeting.
Sorry.
I did. Setting up, but
You were
Next
meeting
meeting.
before it was on Tuesdays, right? That was that's where we were.
No, Wednesdays. Then we went to Tuesdays.
No, yeah, then we went to Tuesdays. But the last thing we were doing was Tuesdays until we went to this thing that's.
Weren't we Wednesdays?
Yeah, we did this because there were five Thursdays.
Were we Wednesday like 3 years ago?
Yeah, we were Wednesdays. And that was sailing night. So then sailing night became Tuesday night. So,
who sailed?
on June,
Will she be done for a few months and we can just?
Yep.
Get through it?
Who's
We'll
that?
change ours every 6 months. For the next 6 months, we're gonna meet,
Wednesdays are, you figure Wednesdays are better days, right? But you said Wednesdays were bad days too.
Well, it depends on which ones. It's the second Wednesday in the month, I'm definitely out.
I'm gonna go grab a Ouija board here.
How about the fourth Wednesday?
Fourth Wednesday, probably could do that.
Fourth Wednesday? Fourth Wednesday?
Is that occupied by anybody?
Fourth
Yeah.
Wednesday?
September 27th.
I got chiropractic, oh, that's not me. Yeah, I'm good.
wrong calendar.
It's just like ridiculous.
Well, not everybody's
color
gonna
code?
be able to.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
No. All right, let's shoot for the 27th.
And we'll try Wednesdays for a short period and see if
Yes.
that works.
Yes.
9/27 is that fourth Wednesday.
Let me go back to where we are.
Would have been the 26th, we moved over one day.
So do you want to end the meeting now?
Yes, we'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Good night.
Nice.
What did you want to tell us? If you didn't want to
All
tell
right.
us? Not yet?